Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It is I, Gambedo Gaming. Today's video is going to be a little bit more chill, a little bit more relaxing. It's going to be a compilation of the entire Animal Crossing Iceberg in one video for your viewing pleasure. I've done this with another Iceberg in the past, and people seem to like it, but just so you know, it will be the same information from all the previous videos, all except for the last layer. The last layer I've saved for the compilation at the last segment of the video, and if you'd like to skip there to the new entries, you can find the time code down below, so just click on that. There were a few things I still wanted to touch on in Animal Crossing that I ended up running out of time for in the main Iceberg series. So what better time to cover these final few entries here and really wrap up the Animal Crossing Iceberg nicely. Without further ado, let's hop into the compilation. If you are a Night Owl player, you'll likely run into this strange ghost character that goes by the name of Wisp. He appears in the original Animal Crossing all the way up to New Horizons, with exceptions to Wild World and New Leaf pre the Welcome Amiibo update to that game. Wisp is a lonely spirit who promises to help the player if they help him gather 5 spirits around the town, little spirit orbs. I think I saw an orb, face ass. In the GameCube Animal Crossing, Wisp even mentions that he has been sent there by his boss, and if he doesn't have the souls, he'll be in big trouble and will even be punished. We find out later that this is a physical punishment, but we'll talk more about this mysterious boss figure later in the Iceberg. If the 5 souls are returned to Wisp in time, he will give the player a choice of prizes that range from stuff like pulling off your town's weeds or giving you a random item not already present in your catalog. Wisp was also used as the amiibo spawner in New Leaf and returned to his original form in New Horizons, where once again you found spirits for Wisp and returned them to him for a prize. Throughout the games, Wisp has taken on different personalities, like in the GameCube version where he is seen to be more jovial and kind, whereas nowadays in New Horizons, he's ironically a super scared ghost. He's scared of his own shadow. You know, given his past working for a mysterious superior, it's not surprising seeing him in this state. But for now, all you need to know is Wisp is another special character that you can do missions for and get items you otherwise might struggle to obtain regularly in your playtime. There are quite a few ways to make money or bells in the Animal Crossing series, and a lot of this comes from the Earth itself, just like in the good old days. Whether it's fruit, seashells, or fish, there are plenty of natural resources to sell to this guy for whatever he's gonna do with it. God knows what he's gonna do with it. There are other more arduous ways of making money, for example, the money rock that has a chance of spawning in a player's town every day that when struck with a shovel or axe will produce bells. It's been featured in all of the Animal Crossing games all the way back to the beginning, with different stats mattering in some games, like the unlucky and lucky buffs in New Leaf, affecting the amount of cash you would get from the money rock. The money rock seems like a simple way to make some quick cash, but if it's not locating the bells, it'll be the crazy knockback you get when hitting the rock. That'll make this actually pretty difficult. The rock is kind of on a timer based on when you start whacking the rock, and if you don't hit it fast enough, you won't get the full amount by the time the timer runs out. Therefore, players have developed ways to avoid this by digging holes behind or in corners of the rock to negate the knockback and be fast enough to get all the money the rock has to offer. This is specifically important for reaching the last bell bag that has the most money in it, making the whole venture worth it. While this is a great way to make money in Animal Crossing, don't try this in real life, you know? Or maybe you do and you find an ore or a diamond or something, you know, real life Minecraft. Throughout the series, there have been countless pieces of furniture for the player to collect and decorate their houses with. However, as the series progressed, certain items actually did more than just fill out your back room. Take the toilet, for example, that for most of the series was just another seat for the player to take in their house with no external effects from using the toilet. This was updated upon in New Horizons, where if you use the toilet, you will actually deplete any energy points your character has, which is from eating fruits, allowing you to be able to uproot trees and break rocks in your town. If you accidentally ate too much fruit and you want to get that day's money rock, for example, but you don't want to outright break it, this is a great way of flushing your system, so to speak. Considering the energy points are obtained from eating, it only makes sense that you get rid of them by, you know, literally shitting them out. So at least it's not as awkward as when your Sims has to take a big runny diarrhea and all you see is just the blurred pixels and you hear them grunting. If there is one thing Animal Crossing will be remembered for, it's the music. No other game could have track names that are simply times of the day and they still be memorable. Like, if you ask me what my favorite Animal Crossing track is, I'll respond with 2 AM GameCube version. It's just that simple. This is because each track is unique to each other, even though the game has a lot of tracks. I mean, you need at least 24 to fill a day, and then you got all the interiors and whatnot. I'd argue the older Animal Crossing music definitely goes harder than New Horizons, but some of the KK songs themselves have found themselves outside of the game due to things like TikTok and other social media recognizing how impactful these songs are for just a good vibe or a mood, you know? On one end of the pendulum, you have something like KK Dirge that makes you feel like you're in the middle of a damp cave with no light and no way out, and you just heard something growl behind you. Then you have KK Bubblegum that makes you feel like you've gone to a K-pop concert in Candyland. KK Bubblegum is without a doubt the most popular KK song from the series, and well, Animal Crossing songs overall. It's catchy, jumpy, and overall a good mood song that gets you in the mood to spin some bells. Who needs to pay bills when this shit is bumping, brug? Let me go get that Regal furniture set in the city, brother. You know what I'm talking about. I got KK Bubblegum blasting in the whip. Can't hear the police behind me. We'll come to find throughout the Iceberg that the Animal Crossing series loves to reference other games, specifically other Nintendo IP. One of the smaller nods to Mario is the 1-up sound effect, which keeps showing up in all of the games. Not only can you emulate the 1-up sound effect by buying the replica 1-up mushroom item, you can also hear it when you are striking the money rock. After the 4th hit, every subsequent hit will be accompanied by a 1-up sound effect. This is likely just a sound cue that you're doing a good job hitting the money rock, and even though bells aren't extra lives, they kind of are, you know, if you think about it too much. Obviously, there are more prominent references to Nintendo's biggest IPs, but for this sound effect to exist outside of the fan service portions of the game, you know, tied to the 1-up furniture, it makes me feel like Animal Crossing is less of a world with these Nintendo games in it, and is rather a world that may be shared with the Mario universe. I don't know, something to think about. I'm bullshitting, but it might not be that far off. Considering both Animal Crossing and Splatoon share a lot of in-house Nintendo developers, there should be no surprise when references show up in each other's games. Since Splatoon is a newer Nintendo IP, it wasn't until the Welcome Amiibo update to New Leaf that the Splatoon references started to show up in the series. That is, without considering the small references to Splatoon and Happy Home Designer, where when decorating Octavian's house, you get some Splatoon-themed items like wallpapers and furniture pieces. The New Leaf Welcome Amiibo update came out sometime after Splatoon 1 had already hit the market, so it was a no-brainer to include some more references to Splatoon through this update, and they did way more than I think a lot of people expected. If you owned the Splatoon amiibo, the first run of them, God knows how many there are now, you could scan them into the campground and would get corresponding villagers that would move in referencing which amiibo you scanned. For example, you could scan in the Inkling Squid amiibos, and you will get a new octopus villager called Inkwell. He resembles the octopus characters from Splatoon, along with wearing a ranked emblem t-shirt from Splatoon. Guy had his head in the game, brother. Not only this, but if you scan in either Callie or Marie amiibos, you will get 2 corresponding squirrel villagers. Each of the squirrels represent these characters through corresponding colors and head accessory and outfits. These quickly became fan favorites, but unfortunately they never got added back into subsequent games and seem to be delisted for lack of a better word. There are even mods for New Horizons that add in CC and Vichy back into the game as villagers, but overall this is the extent of the Splatoon content showing up in the Animal Crossing series, at least for now. New Horizons does have a few smaller references. When fishing and catching a squid, you'll get a little reference to the Splatoon series, but considering these two series are still prevalent and alive, it's strange we don't see more crossover content, or we didn't in New Horizons anyway. And for that matter, the fact that the existing content didn't return is definitely unfortunate and brings into question future references to this caliber in the Animal Crossing series. I think the future's bleak for themed villagers. I think at most we'll just get themed furniture from here on out. There are a lot of beautiful locations to just bask in throughout the series. Don't get me wrong, New Horizons is by far the prettiest in the series, but you can get some crazy views even in the older games. With this, the games have put a larger focus on taking pictures, whether it's for things like the Wii message board or all the way to New Horizons where you can make stuff like this, full-on movie posters. It's really cool. I remember trying to do this anyway, a lot when I was playing the game. The game's put a lot of focus, especially in New Horizons, to give the player plenty of opportunities to take awesome pictures and tools to take them. Things like Harv's Island, where you can set up your pictures exactly how you want them, show that Nintendo wanted to put focus on allowing players enough tools to take really unique pictures. I never really used Harv's Island or any of this, and usually if I'm taking pictures, it's to clear out my Nook Miles bonus points or failing to do cool shit like this. But for those who would like to take an extra step in photography, it's nice that there are these options in the game. Not only did they dedicate a whole island just for taking pictures, but locations inside the museum will also give you unique camera angles that will help increase your picture quality and show off your collections. Stuff like this shows really nice attention to detail, but man, if Harv's Island exists in place of something cooler like Tortimer's Minigame Island, then I don't think it was worth it ever. Bring back Tortimer's Minigame Island, bruh. Resetti is the demon mole that appears throughout the series if the player accidentally or on occasion purposely quits the game without saving. The next time you log in, you'll be greeted by a pretty pissed off Mr. Resetti who explains the importance of saving your game, specifically in Animal Crossing. If you continue to ignore the warnings, you will be met with more and more unique Resetti interactions, where he'll be more pissed every time. You can't say the guy isn't passionate about his job. After the first Animal Crossing, he became a staple in the series, appearing in every game except for New Horizons. And with these appearances, they built on the Resetti character, introducing different Resetti centers throughout the games, along with appearances from his brother Don Resetti. These Resetti centers were first introduced in the original Animal Crossing and was pretty rare to stumble across in this version, at least compared to others in the series. This game is by far the hardest to find the Resetti center in, as you have to have had reset your game at least twice, met Resetti or Don, reset again on that third given day. Then upon reloading the subsequent 7 days, there will be a rock that appears in the player's town that they can break, revealing the entrance to the Resetti Center. Did you get all that? Did you write it down? Inside, you can find Resetti and Don chilling in between their reset calls. You can talk to the Resetti boys in here and get some unique dialogue, but otherwise, this is more just a look behind the curtain of a hard day's work reset policing. In the following games, the Resetti Center would become easier to access, with Resetti and Don appearing in each. I wrote Lou in the script. I wrote Don earlier. I must have been thinking about Louie from Pikmin 2. That's crazy. It's not spelled Louie. It's L-O-U. I shortened it. I was like, surely that guy's name's Lou. He looks like a Lou. You can't argue. He looks like a Lou. In City Folk, as the game progresses, the Resetti boys will begin to feel disdain for the player for trespassing and will even gift the player a silver axe to get them to leave. In New Leaf, they made the Resetti Center a public works project that would only unlock after the player quit the game without saving, at least once. I always really like this little Easter egg secret, as it gives a little more context and life to the Resetti twins, and hell, it might even be the first time you meet his brother Don if you don't reset all the time. Considering autosaving and less harsh punishments for not saving, it's no surprise they're not putting as much focus on a character surrounding a mechanic that is basically phased out of gaming, unless it's a gameplay mechanic in of itself. The days of manual saving are done, and unfortunately so are the days that these fellas' jobs are necessary. Rest in peace, fellas. Fishing is another great way to make some money and kill some time. This is my main way of making money usually when I load up the old Animal Crossing, especially the first game. Throughout the games, they've added incentives other than bells to fishing, like fishing tourneys and a museum collection. The ultimate decision is to donate that big-ass shark or fill your wallet, and also Tom Nook's belly. I mean, he's got to be eating these things, right? With these rare fish, there was always theories and ways to get them to spawn more often so you can stack your cheddar. One I or someone online made up was the fact that if you used the piers in the earlier games, you could catch bigger fish like sharks and shit. This turns out not to matter so much, as it more depends on the time of year, weather, and time of day. However, with the introduction of New Horizons into the series, the strange theory I believed when I played the GameCube version actually came true. This game introduced pier exclusive fish that can only be caught at the end of your town's pier. These fish include the blue marlin, the giant trevally, the mahi-mahi, and a tuna, with of course their specific date and time specifications needing to be met as well. These fish each give the player over 5,000 bells, with the blue marlin reaching up to 10k, so this is a great way to make some early cash. Not only this, but like in previous games, the other purpose of the pier is to set sail with the captain here, where he will spawn after the player gets a 3-star or higher rating in their town. Overall, the pier exclusive fish aren't anything special and are really just important if you're trying to fill out your museum collection or trying to make some early cash. And hey, at least there's a good chance the shadows on the pier aren't these shit-sucking fucking sea basses, bro. Animal Crossing has a pretty complicated origin, as it didn't even start as Animal Crossing, but was rather known as Animal Forest, which is an English translation from its original name in Japan, Dabutsu no Mori. This game was released as an N64 game exclusive to Japan, which was then remade in 2002 and went international when it released on the GameCube. This is where I and many other were introduced to the series for the first time, and man, what a remake it is. The original Animal Forest game lacked a lot of key features that made the GameCube remake so memorable and ahead of its time. Things like the Able sisters and the ability to make your own patterns was completely absent from this version. The 24/7 clock was in-game, since the N64 lacked an internal clock, which the GameCube had. There is no museum in Dabutsu no Mori, eliminating the collecting aspect of the game, besides, personal collections in your house. Characters like Captain and Mayor Tortimer weren't in this version, meaning it lacks their contributions as well. While it seems like a real bare-bones New Horizons Day 1 type of game, it's actually still got a lot of unique life of its own. One of the reasons the original Animal Forest wasn't released internationally at the time was fear of failing to translate certain Japanese references, like holidays and other things that wouldn't have made sense outside of Japan. Things like the cherry blossom event and the shrine that was replaced by the fountain in Animal Crossing on GameCube are reasons this game was stuck in Japan at the time. This was unfortunate, as even though it's a skeleton of a game compared to the GameCube version, it was still a super impressive N64 game, especially for the time, and it laid the framework for the beast of a series we have today. I'll often reference the original Animal Crossing as the international GameCube remake, since that's the first one I played, but technically Animal Forest, aka Dabutsu no Mori, was the very first Animal Crossing game that existed. The Animal Crossing series doesn't give a whole lot of backstory as to what's really going on here. I mean, look at it. There isn't much of an origin story to each of the characters you play throughout the series, and while this is normal in the idea of a game, like for example, it's no stranger than not knowing the backstory of your already grown sim you made, but in the lore sense, it is a bit stranger. We do know that the player moved away from their home to start a new life, and is moving to a town filled with sentient animals as townspeople. Considering we're one of the only humans to be seen in the series, bar a couple of characters here and there, it's a mystery as to why we up and decided to live amongst animals instead of other humans. Perhaps in this world this is a normal thing for young adults to do when moving away, coming of age, but considering you get mail from your parents, we do know that at least there are other humans in this world. Speaking of the player's parents, there isn't much that is revealed about them, as most of the mail received are your typical parent updates during holidays. They are typically more concerned about what's going on in your life since you moved out, but will reveal a little bit about each other in the mail. Your mom will send mail much more often than your father, and man, if that's not the most realistic part of the game, then I don't know what is. And these will often include gifts and bells to help you out with your life. With this, it's the extent of your parents' involvement in the game. This is strange considering how detached it seems the player is with their parents, down to the fact you can't even write a letter back to your parents in any of the games. Sure, the dad doesn't send often, but when he does, it's on Father's Day. What kind of backwards ass shit is that? If anything, you should be expected to send your father a letter on that day, or else he sends your bum ass an invoice for 10 grand. This is likely reading way too much into a role-playing game where you're likely supposed to just pretend this is yourself and the mysterious parents are your actual real-life parents. But if you do take a step back outside of yourself, the whole situation warrants questioning. For now though, just know that the player has these anonymous parents who honestly treat them way too well for someone who doesn't even respond back. As mentioned, the early days of Animal Crossing's release and naming schemes are a bit confusing as the game went through several different versions, with Animal Crossing on the GameCube being the first one I played and a lot of people first played and remember as the original. Even this game has some complications with the naming scheme, as most people just refer to this as the original Animal Crossing or the GameCube Animal Crossing. However, others refer to it in its full title, including the very small subtitle on the box, Population Growing. The subtitle is more of a flair tag than actually meant to be included in the full title, or that's how I and many others consider this, as it's the first in the series, at least internationally, and thus doesn't need an extra title and is often just referred to as Animal Crossing. Considering it was rebranded as Animal Crossing in the international release, again, the addition of an extra subtitle is not needed, unlike say New Leaf that couldn't just be called Animal Crossing but on the 3DS. It hasn't stopped other games from doing this and being confusing as hell, making fans create their own titles for games, but regardless. But yeah, basically sometimes the original international release of the game is referred to in its full title, Animal Crossing Population Growing. While there are plenty of villagers to meet throughout your time in Animal Crossing, new ones every entry, these special villagers are much more rare and are known to make single appearances in certain games in the series. Take for example this next entry, which covers Serena, who is a special goddess wolf-like animal that only showed up in Animal Crossing City Folk on the Wii. Serena would appear in two different places, both as a decoration statue attached to the fountains in your own town and the city portion of the game. Serena can actually be brought to life in a way when the player builds the fountain in their own town by donating a shit ton of bells. Much like a strange little old man we'll talk about later in the Iceberg, Serena's purpose was to provide the player with other variations of the axe tool. If you offer your axe to Serena in the fountain, she will appear at the top and ask the player what kind of axe they tossed in. If you answer honestly, she will sometimes offer the player a golden or silver axe in return. This isn't 100% fail-proof, as often she will turn and decide not to give the player anything for reasons like trying to make themselves look good in front of Serena. This seems pretty random, but if you're lucky enough in the eyes of judgment of Serena, you'll be rewarded with a shiny new axe to play with. Can't wait to test it out on some of my villagers. This is purely cosmetic, but it is definitely a check off the old checklist if you're looking to do everything in the game. Serena and the axe in the fountain is actually a reference to an old Greek tale by the name of the Honest Woodcutter, where in the same vein, a woodcutter dropped his axe into a river when a mermaid asked him questions, to which he responded honestly and was rewarded for it. It's a little good moral story. Just be honest. Honest Abe. Serena didn't return to the series after City Folk, as the need for her was replaced, and ultimately with the tools being reworked for New Horizons, there was likely no good place to bring Serena back for. I am surprised we haven't at least seen her reference in a piece of furniture that's a fountain or something. Like, she could still totally just be a fountain decoration. I'm surprised we haven't seen that. The museum in New Horizons is by far the largest, with the most interactive and deep exhibits in the series. There are a lot of small secrets to find in each exhibit, even one you're probably not supposed to even walk in on. In the bug exhibit, you can find a large tree in the back where, when it's filled with the appropriate bugs, will feature a bug fight club of sorts. The tree will be filled with a ring of beetles who will surround two main beetles who can be seen duking it out, with a spider maybe even playing the ref from up top, or maybe, I don't know, he might be gearing up to drop a pupil's elbow from the top rope. They will duke it out for a half a minute before one is victorious and the loser flies away. Clearly these guys have some sort of money on these fighters, because look how invested the crowd is. Holy shit. Listen, I'm already breaking the #1 rule of Bug Fight Club, so I'm gonna have to watch my back for the insect hitters they send after me. I'm pretty sure I ran into one using the bathroom last night, man. Of the hundreds of villagers who've been introduced in the series, there have only been a few that have been confirmed to be related with one another. This is especially strange given how many villagers there are in each animal category, but currently only a couple of villagers have siblings in the games. One of these sets of siblings is Chrissy and Francine, who, if not obvious by design, will reveal themselves to be related through the games they appear in. Francine and Chrissy originally appeared in Animal Forest E+, and since then they have mostly been a series mainstay, even showing up in the latest New Horizons. In that game, you can actually find further proof of the relationship as Francine keeps a picture of her sister, Chrissy, on her mantle in her home. Until the aforementioned Veshy and Cece, Chrissy and Francine were the only confirmed villager siblings. Obviously, a few of the other special animal folk share relationships like Timmy and Tommy and others like that, but it's strange there are not more obvious families running around these towns. I mean, it is beneficial for us as players as we get more unique animal designs this way rather than just simple color palette swaps and them calling it a day, but for lore purposes, I wouldn't mind seeing more sibling or other villager relationships happen in the future. I know Ozzy has to have a long-lost cousin that is completely opposite of him and is not a walking L. Me and my homies hate Ozzy. Motherfucker was the poster boy for school back in the day, and anything reminding me of that Guantanamo fucking made me shudder. So fuck you, Ozzy. Where's Fozzie, the cooler koala, you know what I'm saying? The Roost is Animal Crossing's version of Starbucks. At least not as corporate, but they definitely serve some hot Joe in there. Some hot cups of Joe. Joe Mama. The coffee shop originated in Wild World and is one of the few things that game actually added to the series. Just a light jab, just a joke, just a gaffe. The Roost also introduced the stoic Brewster, who acts as the barista and will handle all of the orders. Much like we'll find with other characters in the Animal Crossing world, you can build a rapport with Brewster where the more you talk with him, the more he'll open up, revealing more about himself. Brewster and the Roost both return in City Folk, but this time you can also store your gyroids with Brewster, which is, I guess, a good thing? I guess if you're going for a huge gyroid collection. Not only this, but like in Wild World, this is where KK Slider will show up to play on Saturday nights. You can also see a lot of the villagers and special characters spending their off time in the Roost, which is always a nice touch and adds to the cozy feeling of the shop. It just feels like everybody's ending their day with a nice cup of Joe, and you can kind of talk to everybody in a more calm environment. In New Leaf, the Roost is another public works project the player can build and actually builds on the coffee shop idea more and allows the player to do a part-time job where they serve different villagers different flavors of coffee in a little minigame. And finally, in New Horizons, by the time everybody had already put their 100 hours in, they added the Roost and Brewster back into the series in the 2.0 update. While it doesn't do anything new and unique like New Leaf did with this, there are a few additions and differences worth mentioning, like the fact you can now take coffee to go and store it in your pockets for energy points later on. Not only this, but you can use Amiibo to invite villagers and special characters to the coffee shop to share some coffee and take some pictures with them and just hang out. I've always wanted to hang out with Lloyd and get some coffee with him, that little otter fuck. By the time this was added in New Horizons, I had my fair share of that game already, so I didn't really get to experience the Roost in that game. But regardless, this is still one of my favorite places to visit in the Animal Crossing series. After a rough day of wrestling sharks and breaking kneecaps, you gotta love to settle down at the Roost with a nice warm cup of coffee. Just don't forget that oh so chunky delicious pigeon milk. I like to do a double shot of pigeon milk when I go. Me and my villagers trying to get to you, bitch. Hit the last like is a with you, bitch. No, not that money trees. Another way to earn some money is to look out for glowing holes around town emitting from the ground and dig them up. You'll come across a bag of bells that will equal out to 1,000 bells, and the immediate response would likely just be put the bells in your wallet with the rest of your bells and dig the hole back in. Boom. Just a little treat from Mother Nature, nothing big. However, if you notice after you receive the bells, the hole will continue to glow that you just dug. If you instead replant the bells you just dug out of the ground, a tree sapling will form, and well, as for the instant gratification lovers out there, get fucked. If you wait a few days, you can come back and find the tree fruiting with bell bags, allowing the player to get triple the return on investment. Not only this, but you don't have to plant the same bell bag that you dug up out of the ground, and can instead stack your cheddar higher and plant up to the bell bag limit in the hole, which in New Horizons is 99,000, resulting in 198,000 bells in profit. That is, if you're willing to put your bells on the line, because the 100% return on investment ends at planting 10,000 bells, so you are putting on about 100k if you go for that. It's a really cool, unique way of making money and gives you a few avenues to do so. If you want to play it safe, here's your nice 30k. But hey, if you want to live on the edge, put up some of your bells, do so. Just don't let Tom Nook see. He'll find a way to start charging per shovel into the earth, you know what I'm saying? Given that there are so many different species of animals to have as neighbors, it's not surprising that some of the numbers will be lacking with a certain animal class or race. The animal class that has the least amount of villagers is the octopi villagers, where they were slowly added throughout the years, with some games only featuring one octopus. The very first octopus was added in the first game, known as Octavian, and he has appeared in every game since the first and is the only octopus villager to do so. The rest were added in future releases, including the Splatoon-inspired Inkwell and a new octopus villager in New Horizons known as Cephalobot. As we know, the Splatoon-inspired content didn't return in New Horizons, unfortunately, so the overall octopus villager count is back down to 4 in that game, and given that none of them have the character traits to appear in the beginning of the game in New Horizons, the octopus class is one of the few animal classes that is impossible to get on your island's first spawn, making them even more rare. I feel bad if your favorite animal is an octopus, but then again, you kind of have it coming. Out of all of these animals, you choose a little weird octopus. Unless it's Marina, alright? I'll give you that one. She's just fucking adorable. Regardless, I do hope we see more variations of octopus villagers in future games, maybe even adding squids into the mix, but then we get a little weird with the fact you can actually catch and sell versions of these guys in the same universe. This becomes feed the chicken scrambled eggs real quick. Animal Crossing's popularity was hitting during a strange part of Nintendo's history, the Amiibo era. Listen, as little figurines, I do love them as collectibles, but the use in the games themselves was pretty pathetic and hardly worth getting the unique figures just for their in-game uses. I have quite a few of these things, but mainly just the ones I really wanted, stuff that we would otherwise never see. I mean, how often are we getting Nintendo-made Banjo-Kazooie and King K. Rool figurines, right? And these guys came out when they perfected this formula, right? These are really high quality figurines. Another set of Amiibo figures I really hopped on was the Animal Crossing set of figurines, where they made a shit ton of these things expecting them to sell like the Smash Bros ones, but ended up in overstock all across the world. I think I got my full set for like a total of $50 just across a few months from stores like Five Below. These things were just filling discount bins. The Animal Crossing series not only printed a bunch of these figurines for their games, but they also produced Amiibo cards for less mainstay characters like villagers, basically characters they didn't want to do a full figurine for. These cards would actually end up being much more useful than the mainline Amiibo figurines, as the ability to bring your villagers into your town in New Leaf and New Horizons is one of the best uses for an Amiibo I've seen yet, and probably will see. The Welcome Amiibo update to New Leaf mainly added the Amiibo addition to the game series, but unlike New Horizons, you could scan in other series Amiibo for different references, like the aforementioned Splatoon villagers. Not only was this a huge benefit to just Amiibos in general and their use case in games, but the cards are much easier to produce, so they're cheaper, and if you're me, you really only want to get your favorite villager, so in the end it becomes worth it to just stock up on a few of these cards for future playthroughs. Plus, they're, again, just kind of cool collectibles to have. I would have never expected Animal Crossing cards all the way back when I was a kid. I guess there was the E-cards, which we'll talk about later, but still. As far as Amiibo go, I think Animal Crossing series both implemented them the best and the worst with the next entry known as motherfucking Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival. Listen, I hate to leave you guys hanging on a transition like that with the thought of Amiibo Festival in your mind, but I needed a moment to shudder loudly in my room. Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival is the worst of the worst spin-off games that have ever existed. I'm sure there are the few that are fans of this game out there, as from the outside, it's not doing anything wrong, but underneath the hood, you'll find it fucking war crime activity, man. Starting at an E3 sometime in the early 2010s, we see this tease after being starved of Animal Crossing content since New Leaf released, and no console version of the series on Wii U. Imagine the excitement I had when I saw this happen. Then the screen expands and we see the board spaces. Listen, disappointment did fill my body, but little did I know how bad it could actually be. It's not bad enough they massacred my baby boy Animal Crossing into a party game and to a spin-off that was likely going to be the only entry on Wii U. But they couldn't even get the party game right. Looking back, I'm really over the whole dupe of thinking this was a mainline Animal Crossing on Wii U, and am more disappointed at the fact that the game doesn't even function as a fun party game. The game is the epitome of boring, lacking features that would have really benefited the game, like, I don't know, mini games. I get that not every party game needs minigames to be good, right? But this particular game didn't have enough going on in it on the board to warrant the lack of minigames here. It really would have helped out. There is also the offensively bad idea of tapping the amiibo to the Wii U gamepad to roll your dice, and that's pretty much the extent of the gameplay here. I can see now why they didn't want to fucking implement minigames. They'd actually have to program controls. At the end of the day, all I see here is a waste of assets, time, and the initial purpose of the Animal Crossing amiibos. While it's cool we get little figurines of all these obscure Animal Crossing characters, for their main purpose to be tied to a 2-bit party game is just so disappointing. This is why I'm really glad they were at least able to turn around the amiibo capabilities in the series and actually make them useful rather than using them as a game controller. What the fuck were they thinking? I'm sounding like James Rolfe over here, brother. What were they thinking? An Animal Crossing spinoff that didn't absolutely suck chunks was the Happy Home Designer series. This started out as a standalone spin-off series on the 3DS that featured a different game from your traditional Animal Crossing experience, where instead of life simulation, you focus on the decorating aspects of the games. The game uses the same assets from New Leaf and introduces a new way to design the houses, simplifying the placement and making the whole endeavor a lot more fun and not painstaking like in the old games. In terms of updating the game's quality of life, Happy Home Designer has done more for the series than most updates through the newest mainline games even. With the somewhat positive response to Happy Home Designer, they decided to take this design model into New Horizons' base house decoration menu. Not only that, but they did also do a follow-up on Happy Home Designer with the DLC for New Horizons known as Happy Home Paradise, which not only developed on the unique ideas of Happy Home Designer, but introduced a bunch of new characters to the cast. Some of my favorites in the series so far come from this. I really like this little monkey dude. You can also take it beyond developing houses in these Happy Home editions, decorating the interiors of things like schools and hospitals. It feels like a real unique evolution on the Animal Crossing series, and I'm very happy to see the improved decorating design make it into the base New Horizons game. It seems like they're just going to go with this from here forward, which is great. These additions to the Animal Crossing series only served them better, and seeing as we have the polar opposite example of sort of spin-off gone wrong, I'd say Happy Home Designer, or at least Paradise, is definitely worth playing through if you're a fan of the mainline series. Animal Crossing was not only on the forefront of the Amiibo era, but it also washed over into Nintendo's foray into the mobile market. Animal Crossing Pocket Camp was a mobile app released by Nintendo as a free-to-play experience with microtransactions in late 2017. In terms of porting Animal Crossing to a mobile phone experience, I think they did well enough. Bar the devious microtransactions and whatnot, the surrounding game was decent and definitely not the worst showing Nintendo had in the mobile market. The player would design and decorate a campsite instead of a full town and would be able to farm materials to trade for furniture. Not only that, but you can interact with your villagers just as you would do in the mainline game. And it seems like a nice little app to just check in on sometimes. The app ran for quite a few years and received several updates to the game, but in the end we saw something we rarely see with these apps like this. Nintendo decided to stop updating the game, and instead of keeping the servers alive just to die a few years later, they've released a paid offline version with no microtransaction that acts more like a classic Animal Crossing game just on your phone. I think this is a really cool way to sustain the legacy of the app and make it available with everything that was added into the game throughout the years, for the most part. Sure, it probably sucks for everyone that dropped hundreds to get all the stuff throughout the years it was active, but I'd love to see them do this with other of their mobile games like Mario Kart Tour. Just release like a $20, $30 version of that with all the characters unlocked. That'd be nice. Animal Crossing doesn't often appear outside of its respective series, despite it being one of Nintendo's flagship franchises. It wasn't until recently that the series started to be represented in the other crossover games like Super Smash Bros. Animal Crossing even saw content make its way into Mario Kart 8 on Wii U through the way of available racers and a themed race course. The available racers featured were both male and female villagers alongside with Isabelle and even Dry Bowser. What? Why couldn't they add in Tom Nook? The Animal Crossing racetrack is one of the most unique in the series as it features different seasons that change the course respectively. Because of this, it kind of feels like you get 4 different tracks for the price of one, adding to the replay value of the course as well. The set of DLC packs that the Animal Crossing content showed up in was the first time the Mario Kart series started crossover characters outside of the Mario universe like this and The Legend of Zelda. It seems like they have taken a back on that with the new Mario Kart world, but only time will tell if we will get some more Animal Crossing content in future Super Mario World DLC. I really hope so. Considering Animal Crossing isn't a racing game, it is a bit strange it was chosen as a slot in the very few crossover slots Mario Kart 8 would have, but regardless, it is a great fit and open up to the possibility for more crossover characters like the Splatoon editions and the deluxe version on Nintendo Switch. One of the few non-Nintendo collaborations and crossovers comes from the Sanrio collaboration that hit Animal Crossing Pocket Camp back in 2016. Sanrio is a popular Japanese entertainment company, probably most known internationally for the creation of Hello Kitty. Pretty much any of these super cutesy anamorphic animal characters that have always been around, it seems. It's likely a product of Sanrio. The collaboration with Animal Crossing originally started back in 2016 when a special pack of Sanrio amiibo cards were released and was usable in the Welcome Amiibo update to New Leaf. A few years later, Sanrio would actually have a more extensive collaboration with Animal Crossing where things like themed furniture and items were obtainable in Pocket Camp. Unfortunately, these were timed exclusive items, so if you didn't get them during the collab event, they're impossible to get without hacking the game, even in the paid full version that is available now, unfortunately. Finally, in New Horizons, you can get themed furniture to the Sanrio series by scanning in these original 2016 Sanrio amiibo cards. Considering that there are actual real-life mascots like Hello Kitty in the Animal Crossing series is really cool to see and something I'd love to see in the future with appropriate brands. They'd have to work together though, right? I don't want to see a Red Bull collaboration in Animal Crossing or anything. That'd be wild. Maybe I do. That sounds sick, actually. Sanrio has collaborated with Nintendo in other ways in their games, like the special amiibo costumes in the first Super Mario Maker, and it seems like the Sanrio and Nintendo relationship is still in high spirits, so it's not impossible we might see some more collaborations in the future. If I don't see Donkey Kong running around in a little Hello Kitty fucking hood in the new Bonanza game, I'm gonna be pissed, alright? The Froggy Chair is a piece of Animal Crossing lore that has surpassed online popularity far beyond what it was ever meant to. I mean, it's a piece of fucking furniture. Originally just a cute piece of furniture in the first Animal Crossing, the Froggy Chair quickly achieved meme status in the years leading up to New Horizons. I don't know, it's probably something about the simple design of the chair that makes it look like the perfect fodder for a shitpost or something. It goes SpongeBob stills, then this on the list of best meme foundations you can work off of. Given the meme status and popularity of the Froggy Chair online, people noticed it wasn't included in Animal Crossing New Horizons, calling for community riots and cries to add the legendary piece of furniture back into the game. The outcry was so great that Nintendo had no choice but to listen, and they finally added the Froggy Chair back into the series when New Horizons got its 2.0 update. Man, just one of the early mini disgusting omissions that made the early days of New Horizons a fucking disgusting place to be. I'm just kidding. On the real, I think the popularity of the item online really cements this as a weird, cute piece of Animal Crossing lore. And much like other memes online, it's really hard to explain the origins of why Froggy Chair, why? I don't know about you guys, but I need a Froggy Chair IRL. It's like stat. And not some kid chair. I need a full-ass adult chair that'll hold my fat ass. Where I come to fucking relax after a long day. We'll come to find the fans have favorites when it comes to villagers in the Animal Crossing series. These are typically more unique villagers that stand out and became more popular during the New Horizons era, where many fans would go online in hopes that they could trade or even get an amiibo card of their favorite villager for them to move in. One of these unique villagers that also took a life of her own online is known as Anka, the Egyptian cat that appeared all the way back in the first game. Since then, Anka has appeared in every game, bar Wild World, for some reason. The cat villagers are typically more popular than other animal categories, but I've always thought they were a little overrated. Except for Tom, he's the fucking goat, dude. She took on a life of her own when she became somewhat of a meme on TikTok when this animation of her doing a dance, followed by some really messed up internet material that always seems to happen with the strangest things. The Anka villager quickly became one of the most popular villagers to get in your town. Whether you just like her Egyptian design or if you're mesmerized by all of the dancing videos, just do you, man. If Anka's your favorite, no judgment, man. Another special villager that grew in popularity during the height of New Horizons popularity is, surprise, surprise, it's another cat villager. This little guy's name is Raymond, and he is a very posh cat. I don't know why, but I always see Raymond's fit, and I just see a Persona NPC. That's kind of the vibe I get from this guy. Raymond quickly became one of the most sought-after villagers in New Horizons, to the point he became super expensive to trade for online. People were really shilling out real money to get this dude living among them, just so they didn't have to go through the arduous task of using all the Nook Miles and visiting islands looking for him. Imagine paying $200 to get him to move in, and you accidentally tell him to move out. You click the wrong button. That would fucking suck. I think it's just the nature of Raymond as to why he's so popular, as he's one of a kind, especially with the cat race. He is also a bit flirty with the player, making him become a fan favorite amongst the fan base, even more so than just his demeanor. Listen, it was a worldwide pandemic, alright? Usually I judge people for stuff like that, but they really needed to attach to something, and if it had to be a posh cat in Animal Crossing, hey, I guess no harm done. It's true what they say, right? Everybody does love Raymond. Frillard, like many of the other special animals in the world of Animal Crossing, is the only one of his kind to show up in the series. He is a frilled neck lizard that serves as an entertainer in the city portion of City Folk. You can find either him or Dr. Shrunk at the marquee, where Frillard will fill in for Dr. Shrunk on occasion when he's out doing his thing. The marquee is where the player goes in City Folk to get the reactions. Yeah, how far we've come. How much easier is it to get those things in New Horizons? Holy shit. There was something special about making a stop here in the city to watch a show by Dr. Shrunk or Frillard, no matter how corny it was. You earned your reactions back in the day, you know what I'm saying? Considering Frillard is older, the developers made his special reaction sleepiness, given that haha, old people like to sleep type beat. He does teach a few other unique emotions, but I always found that super fitting given his character. Frillard being introduced in City Folk is actually the only time to see him in person in the series, as although he is mentioned in New Leaf, he is never seen in that game. Even more tragically, if you talk to Dr. Shrunk in New Leaf about emotions on occasion, he'll mention that he misses Frillard, who acted as his mentor. This either means Frillard straight up passed away or is no longer in Shrunk's life for whatever reason. Considering Frillard's age, many fans have assumed that this is one of the few confirmed Animal Crossing deaths. But again, it's not super clear, and it was never definitive. Maybe we'll see a Ghost of Jokes Past type meme in the new Animal Crossing whenever that happens. But until then, rest in pieces, Frillard. Your jokes are corny, but you were an alright fella. You were an alright feller. The happy-go-lucky nature of Animal Crossing is the perfect recipe to introduce some strange and creepy shit into. While they have included their fair share of strange paranormal shit, I do wish they did a little bit more because it's always super memorable, for me at least. One of the more strange events that can happen in New Leaf and New Horizons fittingly takes place on Saturday nights at 3:33 a.m. If you are in your house at this exact time on this day and turn on the TV, the broadcast will be interrupted Max Headroom style with images of an alien and a UFO flashing on your screen. Gibberish will follow before it cuts back to the regular Animal Crossing program, which just looks super riveting. This was brought back in New Horizons and works basically the same with a clearer image of the alien who's broadcasting the signal in that game. Lore-wise, this is definitely convincing that aliens would exist in the universe, but we could also consider that this is just a prank being pulled by some more of the devious characters in the series, maybe even a Red. That wouldn't be the wrong line of thinking if there wasn't more evidence lying within an animated film released in Japan by the name of Gekijuban Dabutsu no Mori, which we'll talk about in more detail later in the Iceberg. In the film, during the final act, we find an alien has made contact with the main cast of characters, taking the form as a small metallic orb. The orb can even transform and takes form as the head of the main character eye, showing what its otherworldly abilities are. It's assumed that this is the real alien of the Animal Crossing universe, and these broadcast interruptions are either truly pranks or this alien sending out feelers to the residents of Animal Crossing. Other than these few incidents, there aren't a lot more references to aliens besides in Wild World. Gulliver flies around in a UFO in that game, so space and the idea of aliens have definitely been played around with here, but considering I don't know if the anime is canon, this is really all we have to work with. It's also worth noting that the time this happens in the games isn't random and happens during the witching hours in real life, which many consider the most paranormal part of the night, if you believe in that shit. I don't know about all of that, but I'd love to see the next game take the whole alien Easter egg thing to the next level and allow the players to be abducted or some shit. Maybe even invite the aliens to live on your island. That'd be pretty cool. One of the biggest reasons New Leaf is still regarded as the best in the series is because of the innovations it had on the series. Not only bringing it to a new generation of players, but completely changing some of the norms. Stuff like the whole reason you're where you're at in New Leaf, you're no longer just a resident, but you're now acting mayor of your town. You call the shots, which is why a lot of the unlockable stuff is locked behind things known as public works projects. You sign those on. This also introduced series regulars like Isabelle, who plays a lot more of a role than it seems at first. When you first arrive from the train station to your town in New Leaf, you are greeted by an excited Isabelle who throws the idea of you being the town's mayor into your lap seemingly out of nowhere. Before this, you've not heard anything about this elected position, so it comes as a shock to most players and your in-game character. Even if you deny the mayor accusation, Isabelle basically says, hey, that's good enough, and your seat as mayor is fulfilled. Good job, you did it. The whole point of New Leaf is to either take up the role and act as the leader of your town, or play it by mouth and let Isabelle handle all the dirty work. Who wants to do that shit anyway? That's boring as fuck. Regardless of the involvement in your mayor position, you are at the end of the day the town's mayor. However, given the abruptness of you getting the job, many have questioned who's the actual original mayor. A popular theory is that it was Isabelle herself who lacks the self-confidence to take the position herself and throws it on the first person she sees, who just so happens to be your player. There are a few pieces of evidence that back up this theory, and a few that actually disprove it. For example, backing this theory up, the fact that after taking up the position, you get a letter from an anonymous person who claims to be the original mayor, and this is sent on the paper that Isabelle gives you later in the tutorial, when she teaches you how to send letters. However, others have stated that other villagers would have known that Isabelle was up to bat to be the mayor, and likely wouldn't have allowed her false narrative to play out. Maybe she bribed him? I don't know. We're getting crazy now. Others have theorized that it was supposed to be Tortimer, who was later found on Tortimer Island enjoying his retirement in New Leaf, and he was the original mayor of the series up until New Leaf. Then there is the corner of the internet who believes that the mayor is still this mysterious figure, even believed to be another human who, as we know, are not common creatures in the Animal Crossing universe, bar your player and your player's friends. The way the role of mayor is introduced in New Leaf only serves interest in the mystery behind the original mayor, so it's really no surprise there's so much speculation online. It's just a shame we never got an official answer to this. I think it was originally supposed to be Reggie Fils-Aimé, but hey, that's just me. You know, he loves his Animal Crossing New Leaf.
Okay, that's all the time I've got. I gotta get back to playing Animal Crossing New Leaf on my Nintendo 3DS.
Since the beginning of Animal Crossing, the annoying and anal Happy Home Academy has always been looming over players, watching in the shadows. They serve to stalk the player's home and grade your home's layout, grading it with a score in which they will send you a letter with gifts attached, depending on how well you scored. The Academy remained an invisible entity until City Folk, in which it was a department that could be found in the city. Here at the HQ, we can meet Lyle and get more of a look behind the scenes of how the HHA operates and how to better how to better our scores. Hell, there's even a model room in the back of the HHA building to get inspiration from time to time. Then in New Leaf, the HHA is moved in conjunction with Nook's homes, and it works very similarly to old games where, you know, you just try to score well. And once again, New Horizons disappoints with no Lyle and no physical HHA presence, but with the HHA still existing and beginning after the player upgrades from their starting tents. Several things help with scoring higher on the HHA assessments, like the Feng Shui, which we'll dive more into in the next entry. Now, as far as your typical HHA grading goes, you want to go for complete themed sets of furniture. If you'd rather do your own thing, you can obtain lucky items that will score a base of 777 points per item. These items change from game to game, but some of them include the GameCube games from the first Animal Crossing, unique Nintendo items like the Triforce from City Folk, and New Leaf. Most of the lucky items are oddly bugs, and the lucky items will change monthly, forcing you to change your layout if you want those oh so good HHA points. This was also brought back for New Horizons, where the time of year depends on which items are lucky, with most items being ones you obtain from events like the fishing tournament. Overall, the HHA, the Happy Home Academy, even though a bit creepy when there is no physical entity, only serves to benefit the player by gifting them rare items and overall helping the player properly design their homes. Considering the art of Feng Shui is popular in Japan, it's no surprise there is this much focus on the design of your home in the series. Before you hit the comments up saying Feng Shui originated in China, you dummy, the practice was adopted by the Japanese and is known as Fusui. The basics of Feng Shui is the art of setting up your home, setting up your environment to allow spiritual elements like qi to flow easily through your home and thus into you. This is thought to promote well-being and prosperity, and honestly, I don't think it's all that much of a hogwash. If you're familiar with depression, often your environment suffers with it and will often elongate it, making it a never-ending loop in certain situations. You're depressed, so your environment gets shitty. Your environment shitty, so you're depressed. Considering you spend a lot of time in your home, building it to better your inner self only makes sense to me. I'm still not going to do that shit in real life, don't get me wrong, but hell, if I don't try to get my HHA score up by following this ancient Chinese technique. In Animal Crossing, each furniture piece is assigned a color, and you'd want to correlate different pieces with different parts of the house. So for items that are indicated as red, you'd want to hang those items around the right side of your house. These change throughout the games in the series, with some entries adding more colors, but the latest New Horizons went back and simplified things with the three main colors. Adhering to the Feng Shui charts, it will allow bonus effects to take place and add further score to your HHA points. It's not something that is thrown in your face ever, but the fact it's still in the game is awesome and allows players that want to really max out their HHA scores to do so. It's min-maxing your fucking house decorating. It's crazy. It's also one of the many things that you could take away from Animal Crossing into real life that might benefit you beyond the video game. Again, something I'm way too lazy to try, but hey, if you have a free weekend, you know, try rearranging your shit a little bit. And maybe try to up your chi a little bit, dude. Up your chi, dog. This is less of a lore entry and is rather just a tip, a little hint. In New Horizons, they introduced the ability to customize not only furniture, but things like tools. This isn't unlocked until later, but after unlocking it, it allows players so much more customization all the way down to things like handles of your tools. Not only can you change your fishing rod into a Fisher-Price toy, but it will also restore the tool's durability. If you didn't know, New Horizons introduced crafting, and thus the tools you use are degradable, giving you a reason to craft more. Much like Breath of the Wild, many fans didn't take to this immediately, and while yes, later in the game it does become a fucking nuisance, it's a fun obstacle early game and gives you something to do. However, with knowledge like resetting a tool's durability by customizing it, you'll be running around with indestructible tool sets for the most part. Too bad there's no way to know exactly when it will break, but you start getting that bad looming feeling and you push it too far, it usually breaks, so listen to your gut. So yeah, if you're still playing New Horizons and didn't know this, it'll save some time since it's technically easier just to customize the tool instead of making the base tool, then upgrading it and doing all that to get your desired tool. So there you go, little tip. The creativity of the Animal Crossing player base will never cease to amaze me. During the New Leaf era, a specific player's town blew up in popularity known as Ica Village. If you don't know, you could visit other players' towns in New Leaf through a dream sequence where you could visit the town in your dream and thus not really disturb anything. This was a great way of showcasing other people's creations, their towns, while not allowing any griefing to occur. With this option in the game, some players utilize this to tell a story within their town. In the height of New Leaf's popularity, a story along with a town known as Ica Village grew in popularity online, as everyone and their mother who played this game made it a mission to visit this town at least once. The player used the in-game items to create a creepy narrative that is left up to the visitor to really interpret. I unfortunately never really visited the town myself when I played New Leaf, but seeing video recaps of it on YouTube, it's pretty clear why it was seen as so spooky. It's more of just a testament to the creativity of the player who made it, but hey, I'll never turn my nose at injecting more horror elements into Animal Crossing. Since the dream sequence was brought back in New Horizons, someone decided to make a successor known as Ica Island, but due to several reasons, it wasn't as popular. I think it was a time and place thing, and it could have really only happened with the limitations of New Leaf. Isabelle is by far the most popular and successful character to come from the Animal Crossing series. For a while, it was the crooked Tom Nook, but it's clear she overtook him in that role as the face of the series when she made it into Smash before he did. Do you know how many fake Smash roster posters I've seen where his polygonal ass is hanging out in the corner? Sure, Isabelle probably deserves it more because of her positive, kind nature, but I'll never forget how dirty they did my boy, man. Isabelle was first introduced in New Leaf and since then has appeared as a main character in the subsequent games. Her design, while seemingly simple at first, may reveal a bit more to her English name than it first seems. Isabelle is a fitting name for her design, but many have broken her name down to literally spell out Isabelle is actually a bell. This is because her head vaguely resembles a bag of bells from the series, and that's kind of the extent of the evidence here, not gonna lie. This is also exclusively a North American, European, English release issue, as she is named differently depending on the region. I can definitely see the cheeky nature of Nintendo of America doing this in translation, especially with some of the corny quips that were made for the English versions of previous games. As far as the evidence goes, it's pretty damning. I can't tell you how many times I've run up behind Isabelle when her back's turned and tried to add her to my wallet just to find out, shit, my bad, you're a dog, not a bag of money. In an early Animal Crossing New Horizons Direct, they showed Isabelle at her desk as she greets the player every morning after they build the community center. The only difference from this to the final release is the drink she has sitting next to her on the desk. It has a darker brown liquid with ice in it, and this has sent many fans into a spiral, assuming this was some sort of alcoholic drink. Not our Isabelle. Our Isabelle is a drunkard? Theories started cropping up that Isabelle might be an alcoholic as she's drinking on the job, with many assuming the drink contains some sort of whiskey, given its darker color. Further evidence of Isabelle's alcohol addiction comes from the small infomercials that play around public places in Japan, one wherein Isabelle is explaining the difference between different whiskeys. Yeah, just imagine if Master Chief popped up on a gas station TV teaching you the difference between a key bump and a line. Japan really is a different place. Yeah, this is just one of the many examples of the community memeing something within the Animal Crossing universe for no other reason than it's funny to pretend these adult things are happening in this cute, friendly game. All I have to say is that art has a basis in reality, and I don't really have much more to say than that, honestly. One of the coolest things the original Animal Crossing on GameCube had was the emulation of several different NES games. These were rare items, and if attained, you could play the full version of these NES games within Animal Crossing itself. There are a bunch of the big hitter NES classics to collect and play here, like Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, and stranger stuff like Wario's Woods and shit. These are obviously going to be a little bit more rare and difficult to get, but there are a variety of ways to obtain these games, like playing Nook's Raffle or buying them from Crazy Red. Not only is this an extremely cool thing to add to the game just in terms of game preservation, but in terms of variety of play, they made the Game Boy Advance compatible with these NES games as well. If you connected your Game Boy Advance to your GameCube, you can download certain NES ROMs from Animal Crossing to play on your Game Boy Advance, even playable by unlinking the cable. Is this fucking the early 2000s or early 3000s over here, you know what I'm saying? The ROM would be playable until the Game Boy lost power, and if reconnected to the GameCube, you could transfer your save data of everything you just did on your Advance. This is just so ahead of its time, it hurts. It does. Stuff like this makes the additions to New Horizons look like child's play. It just shows the amount of stuff they wanted to add into the game to make it feel like a fun life simulator. Even these guys play video games. Look, there is an empty NES item that can be obtained that if interacted with will state that it can't be played as it doesn't have any software with it. Get fucked, you bought the system, but you didn't have enough for a game. Using this empty NES item, fans found that you can load custom ROMs into the slot and play most NES games through Animal Crossing beyond the limits of the ones included within the game. Many people also consider this to be one of the best official emulators released by Nintendo even today, with the Nintendo Switch Online emulation included. It gives the most accurate visual and audio emulation, and while the comparison to the emulation with something like a Wii U was obvious, this one's clearly better. You'd be splitting hairs comparing this to the Switch emulation, honestly. Regardless of how accurate the emulation is, it's a testament of how well these games were implemented into Animal Crossing, especially all the way back then. These could have so easily been short demos or crude recreations, but they went the extra mile and included as accurate a recreation as they could for these games. Also, at the time, it was very hard to play these games as there were no virtual consoles or Nintendo Onlines back in the day, so unless you were playing a Game Boy port of this was a great way to play the classics in their original form. Dr. Shrunk, as stated before, is the comedian entertainer who was first introduced in City Folk. In that game, he gave players reactions, and this continued into New Leaf, where he'd appear at Club LOL. Once you go through the Rolodex of all of Shrunk's reactions and corny-ass jokes, you will get a special reaction, or should I say, a special emote. Shrunk will realize he's given you all of his jokes and reaction, and decides to teach his player his signature dance, the Shrunk Funk Shuffle. Woo! This is a small, cute shuffle that looks more like the Danny DeVito wiggle from Always Sunny than an actual dance, but regardless, it goes harder than any Fortnite emote dance ever did, I'm gonna be honest. Unfortunately, this emote was not brought back in New Horizons, although there is code present for it in the bat code of the game, so what's going on? A video on YouTube showcases what some of the NPCs would have looked like shuffling, and it's a damn shame that this didn't make a comeback for New Horizons. Shrunk wasn't added until the 2.0 update, and I feel like, what the hell, this would have been a perfect time to add that dance in as a reaction, but alas, you'll just have to funk shuffle in your dreams, I guess. As mentioned when we were talking about Aliens, the Animal Crossing series got to break out of the video game universe when it got its own anime movie known as Gekijuban Dabutsu no Mori. It stays pretty faithful to the game series as it features main character Ai, an 11-year-old girl who moves out on her own to a village full of animals. In an attempt to fit in, she befriends a few animals, and antics ensue. Ai finds a cryptic note on the island's beach that states a miracle will occur if she plants trees in a certain pattern by the time the Winter Festival occurs. The Winter Festival comes and a UFO crash lands with the equivalent of Gulliver, known as Johnny, emerging asking villagers to help him collect pieces of his UFO. Ai believes she saw one in a nearby cave and seeks it out before returning to give it to Johnny, although Johnny already had collected all of the UFO parts he needed. This is where the film reveals the actual alien we talked about before, which is where it interacts with Ai and takes off in the night sky peacefully, ending the film. There are a few points that are worth watching if you're a fan of the game series, as it tackles the emotions of a villager moving out in a much more realistic light. I'd recommend it if you're looking for a good feeling movie or even a Christmas movie, since the film ends during the winter event, so you get that little vibe, you know. Forewarning for those who don't want to read the film though, it was only ever released in Japan, so subtitles will be required to read during it, at least if you want to know what's going on. I mean, it's not like it's Train to Busan or something. I assume you could get most of the story just from watching it, so. Before Nintendo did shit like this, they really put all they had into their commercials for their products. This is no more clear than with the Animal Crossing live-action commercials that they produced and ran in the early 2000s promoting the GameCube game. They filmed several different variations of these commercials, all with the same intro and each featuring a different aspect of the gameplay to expect in Animal Crossing. The biggest nostalgia hit here is the use of real-life mascots that resemble the villagers in the game. Those are equally cool and demonic at the same time. Looking back at commercials like this and the original Super Smash Bros. Commercials brings you back to another time, and in my opinion, a much more effective marketing campaign era. You took the time to hire a crew of people to dress up in these huge felt costumes to resemble the humanoid creatures in a game. Yeah, I'll check your game out. That's just straight commitment right there. Yeah, I'll throw down the money. A strange piece of lesser-known Animal Crossing history is the existence of a sequel to the GameCube Animal Crossing that's not Wild World, or at least it wasn't in its infancy. A few images surfaced online that suggested they came from an early version of this alleged sequel, showing a very similar game to the first, but clearly shows objects not in the original game. These images are more likely to come from the very first Animal Crossing game known as Dobutsu no Mori, as the game features some regional differences we'll touch on soon. This isn't the only piece of evidence of this supposed sequel, as a listing with the name Animal Crossing 2 was seen in a Japanese gaming magazine known as Famitsu in 2002. This was the only actual confirmation that the game was being developed and was either likely a placeholder title for what would become Wild World or was an actual sequel that would have looked much different from Wild World. During E3 2004, Nintendo revealed the Nintendo DS and the games that would follow the launch. Among these presentations, the press got a sneak peek behind doors at a video demo of Animal Crossing running on a Nintendo DS. This footage showcases a game that appears more similar to the original GameCube game than what came of Wild World. It would have featured gameplay on the top screen while the menu and inventory would be on the bottom screen, like how it should have been. What? Even though this wasn't anything more than a tech demo, it does seem a bit more fleshed out than your average demo, and maybe the remnants of the supposed Animal Crossing 2 that was turned into Wild World. A year later, Animal Crossing DS was shown at E3, and it was much more representative of what Wild World would be upon final release. This at least confirms that Wild World on DS wasn't always going to be the game we got, and may have been a more traditional Animal Crossing game, just on the go. Either that, or this is the remnants of an abandoned sequel that was eventually reworked into Wild World. What do you guys think? Considering we don't have a concrete answer, we can just speculate, but there's something substantial about this abandoned sequel, and I hope we do see more of it in a future leak or something. That'd be really cool. As stated earlier in the video, the original Animal Crossing is a mess of confusing game releases. After Animal Forest was ported to the US under the name of Animal Crossing, the Japanese developers saw the changes in that version and decided to release an updated version of Animal Forest, now known as Animal Forest E+. Jesus fucking Christ. This version not only featured much of the updated stuff added to the international release, but added even more on top of that. With this, there are a lot of small changes, some of which we will cover in further detail down the iceberg, but there is a lot here. For example, you can wake Tom Nook up early by banging on the shop's door during closing hours with a shovel. It also cuts down on the time you work for Tom Nook by removing the portion where he wants you to go help your neighbors out while he prepares your next job. It'll just cut to the next job. Overall, the updated version probably wasn't super necessary, but you know, that's easy for me to say. I was playing the cool international updated version, so. For the Japanese audiences, this was by far the most definitive way to play the original game. One of the biggest additions to this game was a bit gimmicky and is the reason for the addition of the E in the title. At the time, Nintendo was testing out technology known as e-reader cards, and this was the main way to gain access to new villagers. These were basically an early version of Amiibo that would unlock certain extra content if the card was swiped into this big-ass peripheral. In Animal Forest E+'s case, this would unlock new villagers the update introduced. Yeah, you had to get cards of them. Overall, the technology was probably ahead of its time and good and all that, but I don't remember a lot of people using this, and much like Amiibo, the amount this was used didn't warrant getting all of the cards and just everything this thing had to offer. Overall, I don't think the e-reader cards are anything super impressive, but they did add an extra layer to the games it supported and gave another reason for fans to upgrade to the E+ versions of their games like Animal Forest E+. Given that there were so many different versions of Animal Crossing's first game, we can see clearly a lot of regional differences in a pseudo game of volleyball they were playing with the first game. Just lobbing that shit back and forth. Oh, you updated it? Alright, I'll update it with your shit. A lot of the regional differences come from Animal Forest Plus to the international release of Animal Crossing on GameCube. this is where they took a lot of that shit out. A lot of the changes are to better localize the game, basically changing or eliminating a lot of the Japanese textures and themes and stuff like that. There are too many things to list here that are different, but everything from the fountain in the town being a shrine in the Japanese version to Tom Nook sporting a completely different look during certain events, there's a lot to see in terms of regional differences. If you'd like to see a more specific breakdown of all the regional differences, I'd recommend checking out Shiza's breakdown in his series Region Break. It's a great episode. Along with this comes certain censorships throughout the years that have changed things like repalettes of certain characters. We can even look as recent as New Leaf, where the developers took Resetti out of the game unless first unlocked, due to feedback from earlier games that Resetti scared kids. Overall, the series has dodged controversy for the most part, so in terms of censorship, there isn't a lot here. It's not like the Japanese version of Tom Nook featured a huge nutsack or anything, but that is also not completely absent from the game, so... You know what? Now that I think about it, maybe a few more things should have been censored here. One of Animal Crossing's stranger mysteries is one that only benefits the player, but at whose expense? If you've ever played any number of the Animal Crossing games, you've likely seen the gifts floating around the skyline of your town. Depending on which game you're playing, there are different ways to retrieve the presents, with the most common being the slingshot tool, which is the main use for this item. These gifts from these balloons often contain furniture pieces, but in newer games you can get a large variety of items, including materials for craftings, tens of thousands of bells, and you could even get some new drip. Hey man, where'd you get that Gucci coat from, man? From the heavens, cuz. While this is always a nice treat for players to get, it begs the question, where do these presents originate from? Where do they come from? Considering they typically fly from left to right across your town, we can assume the origin of these presents comes from somewhere off the left side of your island. There have been many theories on how and who sends these presents, including many accusing different characters like Tom Nook or even Crazy Red. However, due to the fact that all of these characters can be present at the same time as the floating gift, it's likely not their doing specifically. We could definitely look at a motive for an origin, but this may just bring up more questions than answers. There isn't a lot more motive for the usual suspects like Tom Nook to send the player random gifts and items, so again, it's likely not them. He'd make sure you're paying for them at least, you know? The most sensible theory I've seen actually brings the player's parents back into play. As we've discussed, we know that the player's mom constantly sends gifts to the player through letters, whether randomly or on certain holidays. We also know that the dad character is rarely heard from except for on Father's Day in older games where he'd write to the player. Many have assumed that instead of using the traditional postal service to reach out, he pulls a dad move of all dad moves and creates a quirky way to send gifts to his kid anonymously. Obviously it depends, but it feels like something a dad would do who's trying to be funny and maybe even is trying to creep their kid out with these anonymous gifts. This would explain the lack of contact from the player's dad and definitely shines him in less of a worse light than him just not caring to make contact with the player ever. I definitely think this is the best answer or resolution to this theory, but other theories exist, like to mention other villagers in other towns send these gifts to other islands in hope of helping them in their own little journey. Whoever and whatever is sending these balloons will always be a mystery, it seems, and it's only in the nature of the Animal Crossing series to question something as simple as another way to obtain items. But hey, here we are. What do you guys think? Who's sending these gifts? Perhaps one of the biggest reasons I was really excited to see the next project from the Animal Crossing series post New Leaf was the strange release of the Animal Crossing Plaza on Wii U. Nintendo was already testing out building a more social gaming experience with the Wii U, with things like the Miiverse. In of itself, you could find some real gold from the Miiverse days where it acted as its own Nintendo social network of sorts. Shit, that thing's better than Twitter ever was, let's be honest. From these ideals, we ended up receiving a strange free app that hit the Wii U and featured the cast of the Animal Crossing crew, just not necessarily in a game, but rather a tech demo app of sorts. However, unlike most tech demos, this was being used by the public with no real purpose to the app, bar connecting your New Leaf save file to share your photos taken from that game and import them over. Other than this main function, the Plaza acted as an Animal Crossing themed social Miiverse network of sorts, and basically worked as an extension of the Miiverse. As stated, you can import your New Leaf photos and share them across Miiverse through this application, which is pretty cool, but wasn't something that was keeping people's attention, keep people coming back to the Plaza. I think the general consensus of Animal Crossing Plaza was that it was a cool small free app to finally see all of the animals in one place on Wii U. But at the same time, there's the biggest question of why does this exist. Obviously, many fans saw it as a tease for an Animal Crossing entry on Wii U, me included, and it was one of the many foundational pieces that made the reveal of Amiibo Festival so goddamn disappointing.
Don't let me leave, Murph!
The service was also not live for all that long, only lasting a year, with the main Miiverse service outliving it even. This even seemed to be the plan from the beginning, as during its announcement it was made clear that this would be a limited time application. However, unlike something like Super Mario Bros. 35, there was no real missing this application after the servers were shut down. Oh no, I can't post my new Leaf photos now to the Miiverse. Listen, since it's 2025, not only can you not download Plaza, but if you could get into it, the Miiverse service has since been shut down long ago. So if there was ever a deader game out there, I haven't seen it yet. Overall, you can't complain too much about Plaza's existence as it was free, but again, the whole purpose of it was strange and almost makes me feel like Nintendo had a different idea for Animal Crossing on Wii U before going the direction of Amiibo Siesta. The most use I ever got out of it was launching it, clicking on a few animals, getting disappointed it wasn't Animal Crossing Wii U, then I shut it down. Has anyone in the comments ever actually used this application? Let me know, because I never even went as far as importing my new Leaf images, so this thing sat like a rock on my Wii U, never being regarded, but always still there. The Nintendo 64 was definitely lacking by the time disc-based game consoles started to become popular like the PlayStation 1. To remedy this, Nintendo planned an extension to the Nintendo 64 that added a disc drive to the bottom of the console, not unlike the disc drives you can buy nowadays for stuff like PlayStation 5. The extension was planned and announced before the Nintendo 64 base model even launched, meaning Nintendo was planning to implement this for quite a while. The 64 disc drive, or 64DD as it's now known, was only released in Japan, as by the time they were ready to launch the extension worldwide, the market was already showing disinterest in this big ol' accessory, this big ol' piece of junk. This would force Nintendo to abandon the extension and move on to their next console, the disc-based GameCube. Many games would then be canned or moved to another platform, whether that be the regular base N64 or their next planned console, the GameCube. Of the many games that ended up being canned for the disc drive, there were still a few that launched in Japan exclusively for the 64 disc drive, and include stuff like SimCity 64, the Mario Artist Studio series, and an expansion on F-Zero X. Of the around 60 planned games for this extension, a little series we refer to as Animal Crossing was amongst the many being developed for the disc drive. After the market's decline with the 64DD, Nintendo decided to move their efforts to developing the game on the base N64, and as a result, we got the half-baked Animal Forest release in Japan. Not only does this show that Nintendo always wanted the features present in the GameCube version and the E Plus version, like the 24-hour internal clock, but it also reveals a lot more of what Animal Crossing looked like in the early days. Initially, the pitch for Animal Crossing is much different from the simulator game we know today. Animal Crossing was originally a cooperative RPG where you'd enlist help of friends and NPCs to work your way through dungeons and reach different goals. You would get help from the animal NPCs in the game we know as villagers today, and they'd only be available in their waking hours, hence the use of the 24-hour clock. Obviously, at some point, the goal-oriented gameplay began to fade, and it slowly started to turn into the life simulator game we know the series to be nowadays. And this initial idea, while I don't think would have been as popular as Animal Crossing, would have been really cool to see played out. I don't think they should fully throw away this RPG idea, and hey, maybe that's your next spin-off title there, Nintendo, for the Animal Crossing series. I know this would kind of go against the whole go-at-your-own-pace gameplay nature of Animal Crossing, but I think if done right, it would fit in the line of games. I mean, it definitely wouldn't be the worst. Regardless, I think it's better we got the Animal Crossing we got, because another Zelda clone likely wouldn't have survived as long as the series has today. And hey, if you really want that co-op dungeon crawling experience, they finally got around to that as well, just a few years later in a different series. In each of the Animal Crossing games, you can build a pretty healthy catalog of KK Slider tunes. These are usually obtainable through his concerts, where he'll play a live version of the song before giving the player a recording of the song, a little stew sesh recording. In older games, this was the main way to obtain these songs, and pretty painstakingly, as you had to type in the title of the song when requesting one to KK, otherwise he wouldn't play the correct song. With this, there have been a number of secret and invalid songs in the games throughout the years. The secret songs are songs that aren't aren't super obvious to obtain, and the player will need to learn the name of these songs by using dialogue from villagers and putting some clues together to get the actual name to request. KK will play a random song if the player doesn't have a specific request, and even though these secret songs are technically part of his set list, he will never play these unless first requested. Some of these songs include KK Song from the first Animal Crossing, Wandering from City Folk, and Farewell from New Horizons. These songs are often KK remixes of songs from previous games in the series. For example, the secret song from New Horizons, known as Animal City, is a remix of the city theme from City Folk. Along with these secret songs are songs known as invalid songs and are the result of misspelling a song title when requesting one from KK Slider. These invalid songs are often remixes, and these songs can never actually be personally owned because KK states he improvised a song on the spot since he didn't know what KK Cruisin' was. I know what KK Cruising is, but I don't know, I've never heard of this KK Cruisin'. This fucking guy, right? Jesus. So technically each game in the series has quite a few secret songs, some of which are rarer than others, but this trend has still continued into New Horizons where they are unavailable to be purchased and must be requested first by KK when he visits the island. Overall, the secret songs aren't like the best in the game or anything, but are definitely worth hearing out and collecting the few if you want to complete your full KK music catalog. KK Slider is an absolute icon in the Animal Crossing series. I mean, he's basically this world's version of like Billy Joel or something. Hit after hit after hit, brother. I swear to God, if they play KK Driving at the Club, I might actually start geeking, brother. KK Slider's origins may actually have some basis in reality, as we could see from the evidence provided from his stage name and his real name that this may be a representation of a famous video game composer. Most know the Slick String Dog as KK Slider, but if you ran into him in the first game, he'd actually reveal his real name is Totekekeki. Totekekek. Totakeke. The KK is likely a shortened version of the Keke at the end of his own name, and Slider is just because he slides across some strings like an absolute dog. Oh wait, a renowned Nintendo composer just so happens to also often go by the nickname of Totakeki, and of course that is the legendary Kazumi Totaka. This nickname came from his name being referred to as Totakeke and is extended to just be Totakeke. If you don't know, Kazumi is responsible not only for some of Nintendo's most memorable tracks, but also for a legendary Easter egg that appears in many Nintendo games known as Totaka's Song. Animal Crossing is one of the many games with the song present in it, but we'll talk about that more in the next entry. So yeah, KK Slider is basically an in-game representation of Kazumi Totaka, and hell, if this isn't one of the best ways to achieve popularity status. I mean, besides the greats like David Wise, fucking Koji Kondo and Kirk Hope. Name any other game composer. Yeah, it's not the most lavish position, but this is definitely a great way to get people to recognize your contributions and your work and your legacy. If not for the popular Totake Song Easter egg appearing everywhere, I'd almost say this backfired, as KK Slider is almost more popular than the guy he represents. Regardless, next time you see KK Slider, call him Kazumi. It'll totally freak him out. You'll see the fear in his eyes. You know too much. Unlike most video game composers that simply let their music speak for itself, Kazumi Totaka took it a step further and added in these aforementioned Easter eggs, simply titled Totaka's Song. This song, or more fittingly, jingle, is very identifiable in every game it's in, despite the vastly different versions of the song. It's appeared as far as back as the original Game Boy, and has appeared in countless games since that Totaka has composed, yes, you compose music. I personally didn't realize it for a long time, but I had been hearing this jingle throughout my childhood, and I didn't even know the iconic nature of it. I remember first hearing it all the way back in Mario Paint on the Super Nintendo, and stumbling across it in Animal Crossing, and even Luigi's Mansion. But even then, I still didn't make a connection that these were all the same tune, and that possibly it was all from the same guy. Totaka's song is the ultimate artist signature and is one you'll be sure to find in any game this legend has worked on. In the Animal Crossing series, the song shows up in almost all of the games in the series and usually shows up as a song that can be requested from KK Slider, and is actually one I referenced in the previous entry known as KK Song. In some more obscure occurrences, the jingle can be heard, like when the player visits Tortimer's minigame island in New Leaf. Captain can be heard changing his song into the jingle for a moment if the player has considerable network lag, as the song can only be heard after riding with Captain for almost 7 whole minutes. Jesus. Do you even have internet, brother? Totaka's song also appears in the aforementioned Animal Crossing Plaza, where KK can be heard playing the jingle on occasion. Considering the music makes up a large portion of what makes Animal Crossing so great, and considering it's all because of this dude, more or less, of course he's got a team and whatnot, I'd say this is a great way to honor the legend. I still like Mr. Wise a little bit more, but I swear, it's like right there, man. As mentioned in the first part of the Iceberg, Wisp is a friendly but pretty shooketh ghost that shows up to the player's town in the early hours of the morning. He'll ask the players to gather spirit orbs to bring back to him, and if he doesn't have them, he will answer his boss, who he has described in many different forms. But one thing is for certain, it's never a good end for Wisp if he doesn't respect his master's wishes. In the original GameCube release, we get the most information as to who Wisp's master or masters are. This comes in the way of the many different nicknames Wisp will refer to his master or masters as. Some of these nicknames include stuff like the Unibrow, the Big Smelly, a Hard Noodle, and Mr. Meanie. There are many more nicknames that Wisp can give the player about his bosses, and has even sparked the idea that instead of one single entity with these many nicknames, it is rather a group of masters, and Wisp is naming each of them to the player accurately. I want to see fucking the Big Smelly, dude. Probably a giant nose. I honestly don't know which is worse, but the idea that Wisp could be caught up in some sort of Illuminati cult thing is pretty horrifying. We find in an issue of Dobitsu no Mori Hohenda Mora Daori, an Animal Crossing manga, that the repercussion of Wisp not following orders is a physical punishment, as we can see him damaged and bruised in this comic strip right here. It's even revealed in the manga that wherever Wisp masters reside, regular humans can't get there, as the main protagonist says. They'll have to go have a chat with Wisp bosses themselves. Wisp responds that this isn't possible as he's been banished to the Shadow Realm for all of eternity. Nah, that last part's made up. No mention of Shadow Realms here, but it is actually revealed that the humans cannot travel to this realm. This doesn't help the whole afterlife demon cult theory, but hey, luckily due to the developers' lack of adding any ounce of any new lore to New Horizons, we find that Wisp seems to be free from these villains' grasp nowadays. Thank God. Either that or they finally shut him up for good, Cuckoo's Nest style, you know what I'm saying? Whoever or whatever Wisp's superiors are, I think we all share the same sentiment as Sayorion, the main protagonist in the manga. Just point me in the direction, Wisp. The rest will be dealt with. Can't let the demons possess my boy like they did Zach Bagans. Speaking of the manga, let's take a deeper look at the Hohinda Mora Daori series of manga books that follow the Animal Crossing series. It is one of the few Animal Crossing mangas out there and has had 12 issues, which follow the adventures of Siren and her friends. They live in Hohinda, a village where, much like the video games, is inhabited by animal villagers. There are some familiar faces here with appearances from villagers like Filbert, Wolfgang, and my boy Tom. He makes a fat fucking appearance. Let's go. Not only this, but it also features some special characters like the aforementioned Wisp, and others like Tom Nook, Tortimer, and Crazy Red. Like the nature of Animal Crossing, there isn't a whole lot of conflict that happens in these stories, more just recaptures of moments you'd have in the game, but in manga form. For example, the 5th volume features a winter theme where the main character can be seen building a snowman. There is also a hilarious page I found, and I have no idea what issue it came from, but it appears someone sent Homeboy here a boot they found in the river in the mail. It's just the way he looks so hyped to open some mail. He's feeling around the envelope, he knows there's something good inside, and he opens it and it's a fucking wet boot. Soggy boot, get soggy booted. And then look how aggressive this character is. Like, they really wanted credit for that. That's wild. Like, look me in my shits. I did that. Considering I don't read Japanese, I can't gather too much more from the series, but assuming it's pretty surface level and likely not even canon, we're likely not missing out on too much lore here. Although it is nice to see the extended look into some of the characters' potential lore, like with the image of what happens when Wisp doesn't do what his bosses say. If anyone has read these, I know it's really not likely, but please share some of your favorite moments from the series in the comments. I'd love to get these translated one day because they look like a good time. I mean, hey, at least a good bathroom read, right? Come on. If you learn one thing working for Tom Nook in the early games is that time is money. Unless, of course, that time is past 10 p.m. Then it's time to get some zip. Working around shop hours is one of the worst things for late night players, and while later games like New Leaf somewhat remedied this, it's important to know all of these shops hours, as once they're closed, you'll have to wait until the following day to make use of them. In the early days, these strict shop hours were one of the main things causing me to time skip and change the time to an hour where they are open. While there was never a way to get back into the shop after hours, at least in the English GameCube release, you could still sneak in right before the shop closes, and surely he wouldn't kick you out. Kick out a nice paying customer, right? Well, to Tom Nook, Betty Buy time is a more important time than money time, you know what I'm saying? As the time wanes on towards closing time, you'll hear the music change before the closing hour. Tom Nook will politely ask you to leave. This is seen in many of the mainline games, at least for Tom Nook's shop, with it even showing up as recently as New Horizons, where Timmy and Tommy are up to the task of making the player disappear. That sounded a little bit more ominous than I wanted. Other shops like Retail from New Leaf don't exactly adhere to these strict rules, as if you get into the store before closing, you can stay as long as you want, and upon leaving it'll close. They value a paying customer there at Retail. Gotta love them. In reality, if you've ever worked retail around closing time, the last thing you want is some bum asking you the price on a fishing rod at 10:58 p.m. just for him to put it back down and walk out. So I totally get them kicking you out immediately upon the hour they close. I relate to that heavy. As I briefly mentioned before, Mr. Resetti kind of took a backseat in the later Animal Crossing games, and this was due to one main reason. Well, a couple reasons, but one main reason. In the early Animal Crossing games, Resetti served as a harsh punishment to players who ignored all the warnings to save before quitting. Not only is the natural consequence that everything you just did doesn't matter now, it's all gone, but you also get scolded by the angry Resetti character whose initial purpose was to persuade the player to save before quitting. Resetti's original purpose was eventually his demise, actually, at least in terms of being a regular gameplay element. Resetti initially scared many children because he's a hothead. I mean, look at him, he shouts. So much so that Nintendo noticed, and upon New Leaf releasing, many noticed that Resetti wasn't the same as he was in previous titles, in that he is much more calm and can only really be met fully when you build the Resetti Center via the public works projects. Although Resetti still shows up if the player quits without saving, instead of scolding the player, he will ask for help to restore the Resetti Center. After building the center, Resetti will actually ask the player why they reset in the first place, with a few options present. If you simply respond, "I just wanted to reset, bro," it just seemed like a good thing to do. Resetti will go back to his old ways and yell at the player about the dangers of resetting, really getting in your ear. Considering how many more hoops you have to hop through to get this interaction, I'd say Nintendo did well to quote-unquote censor Resetti, at least to the point he can no longer easily scare children who might be playing. I myself remember being uncomfortable by Resetti and with my earliest memories of the GameCube game, but as I grew older, I realized he was just a curmudgeon that was just way too into his work. Sure, he might have snapped a couple of times and went a little too far. Sure, he might have some bodies hidden under the Resetti Center, but you can't say you wouldn't miss Resetti if he ever left the series. And considering how much more nerfed Mr. Resetti was in New Horizons, it might not be that long before the Resetti brothers are just another distant memory. Again, as I stated before, I wish Animal Crossing had more paranormal events, really taking that extra step to creep the player out. Although, considering the game is still heavily targeted towards a younger audience, they likely don't want to go too far in that direction. But even with the stuff that's in the game, it feels like they could have done more that's similar, on the same level. One of the few things New Horizons added to the series is the fact that certain fake art you obtain has a chance to be haunted. Yeah, not only is Red selling you forged art, but he's introducing demons into your life. Gotta love the guy. Gotta love him. Of the fake pieces of art, the following are haunted and each have different effects that make it obvious they are haunted. One of the creepiest, in my opinion, is the woman in the wistful painting will close her eyes on occasion. Not only is just moving pictures creepy as hell, but it could make you feel like you're going crazy if you didn't initially catch it moving. Some real Scooby-Doo type shit here. The ancient statue is another haunted piece that will begin to glow upon dusk at 6 p.m. And if interacted with, it will start to levitate as if a poltergeist is lifting it right in front of your eyes. Out of the few pieces of art that can be haunted, a lot of them are fairly tame and some are just flat out lame, I'm gonna be honest. I get that they don't want to make it super creepy to where it's goofy or something, and that the creepy nature of them comes from the subtle nature of their changes, but come on, a mural, statue, plaque thing that begins to glow a little bit more is supposed to be haunted. Like, what about a painting that has ghost orbs floating around it at like 3 a.m.? Something. I just feel like they had a lot to work with given the art they added into the game, and the fact that they never really added more kind of sucks. I just hope they continue this trend in the next Animal Crossing game and add even more scares in the way of haunted art, and maybe even cursed fossils or something like that. Again, pipe dream stuff, but this is one of the many things that makes me hopeful that creepier stuff will continue to make its way into the series. So I was fibbing a bit when I said Animal Crossing wasn't known to censor a lot of their content, but in order to avoid controversy, they have been known to make changes based on regions. As mentioned before, Nintendo is pretty good at getting in front of controversy, at least when it comes to the content of their games. Take, for example, the change in the item known as the Mini Mustache in Animal Crossing Wild World. The Mini Mustache is a cosmetic item that the player would wear to make them appear as if they had facial hair. The Mini Mustache, at least in the Japanese version, looks like this. Okay, no, yeah, all right, no problem, right? Yeah, wrong. Let's see it in practice. Okay. Yeah, there's the problem. I see it now. Yeah, obviously optics on this look really bad, even though this is still a popular facial hairstyle in some parts of the world. In other parts, it is certainly frowned upon. Therefore, in the European, and if I remember correctly, even in the North American release, they featured this version of the Mini Mustache instead. Listen, in most people's eyes, no amount of Charlie Chaplin's could exist to make this style work again. So it'll always be up there on the chopping block in situations like this. In fact, to avoid the need to change the facial hair based on the region further, they moved with other facial hairstyles instead in future games. It's obviously for the best, but even for this to be considered and actually released in a version of the game is wild and honestly hilarious in absurdity when seeing an image like this in-game. I mean, holy shit, what are we doing here, guys? As we know now, if you try and hang out at Tom Nook's businesses after hours, he'll immediately kick you out onto the street. 9:59. Welcome in. How's it going? 10 p.m. Your money's no good here. Get the fuck out of my shop, you bum. However, that wasn't always the case, and in fact, you could actually gain access back to the shop after it closes, no matter what time it is. One of the many updates to the International GameCube Animal Crossing that Dobotsu no Mori E Plus added was the ability to wake Tom Nook up and force him to run his shop after hours. To do this, you will need to hit the shop door 3 times with a shovel before the door opens and you can enter. Not only can you see Tom Nook in his adorable little pajamas, you can see that he is clearly still pretty groggy. Buddy was in them deep rim. Even in his groggy state, Tom Nook is still conscious enough to realize how bullshit this whole situation is, and he will charge the player 20% more bells for anything you buy, and will buy everything from the player for 30% less. Yeah, it's not the best deal, but hey, you're lucky he even opened his door for your bum ass. With the inflated prices, Tom Nook will even walk slower to get to the player to sell stuff. If you thought he was slow during the day, damn man, see him when he's fresh out the fucking oven. In reality, this is a great way to gain emergency access to the store if you need it late at night. Even at the outrageous inflation, still worth empty pockets, right guys? How many times have you been late night fishing or bug hunting and come across full pockets? It's so goddamn annoying. This has obviously been mended in modern games with things like the drop-off box outside of Nook's Cranny and New Horizons, where similarly you'll get less in return for using it instead of selling directly to Timmy and Tommy. Speaking of Timmy and Tommy, apparently if you upgraded to Nookingtons and got in after hours, you could also see them in their pajamas. Overall, this is one of the things that E Plus had that made me jealous that we had the lesser version of the game. I remember seeing this when I was younger and not understanding that this was in an updated version of the game and attempting to do it in my version only to fail countlessly. Hey Nook, let me in. I know you're in there, you fat fuck. Even some of the smallest details can mean a lot in a game like Animal Crossing. Take, for example, the evolution of the tree stumps throughout the games. In the first 2 games, the tree stumps were simply used for decorations for your town, before city folk added bug spawns on top of disregarded tree stumps. However, it wasn't until New Leaf where the tree trunks got their best overhaul and began to be used for more than just a symbol of your laziness. Similar to city folk, certain bugs can spawn on these tree stumps, but not only that, when you cut down a tree, you have a chance of finding a pretty unique pattern on top of this tree stump. These patterns vary, with a total of 12 patterns available. There's actually ways to get better pattern spawns by using different axes, with the silver axe having the best returns for these patterns. Not only was this added for obvious decorative purposes, but the addition of outside furniture like benches added the ability to sit on the tree stumps as well. So now you and the villagers can use these as a comfy seat, and you can even customize these natural nature seats to better fit your town's vibe. Again, this is such a small detail that it seems not to matter as much, but for those who really like to get very intricate with their town design, it was really a nice touch. Unfortunately, the stump patterns were removed in New Horizons, with them still acting as benches and bug spawns. Details like this really start to add up and become noticeable when they're absent. During a recent leak of old Nintendo games, we got some information about the original Animal Crossing beta. We'll be looking at these leaks in more detail in the next part, but for now, we will take a look at a specific item that didn't make it into the final Animal Crossing game. From the many things that developers changed and added in the international release of the game, there were a number of things that didn't make the cut, surprisingly. A paper airplane item was found in the game's beta files, where it appears it would have been used as a leisure item rather than a purposeful tool. The paper airplane can be brought back into the game, albeit glitchy, but functional. Upon doing so, we can see how the paper airplane would have worked, where the player would have been able to throw the airplane and control it in the air for a few seconds before it hit the ground. The animations and ability to throw the paper airplane still exist, so we can see exactly what that would have looked like, although this is very risky and something you shouldn't do in your own town. This is because the item is bugged to not be able to be picked back up off the ground, and upon entering and exiting buildings or acres, the airplane will multiply on the ground. This can end up getting so bad that you either just have to not go into that acre anymore, or if you're super unlucky, your whole town can be taken over by these airplanes until some point where the game has too many entities existing and ceases to work, basically bricking your game. This likely isn't the reason it went unused, as that is ultimately unknown, but is just a nasty side effect of not being fully implemented. Again, the smaller details, like just the small items you can carry around that really don't do anything, really add to the mood in these games. So the chance to have more of these is exciting, but equally disappointing that they were never worked further upon. I would have loved to see this as an alternate way to send your villagers mail or something in New Horizons, or at the very least let me nail Tom Nook's dumbass in the head anytime he lowballs me on a fucking fish. Lottie has really carved out a place in the Animal Crossing universe, with her main character status similar to Isabelle's in Happy Home Paradise. She was first introduced in Happy Home Designer on 3DS and is the niece of Happy Home legend Lyle. She is an otter who sports a cutesy look and actually has a secret-ish version of herself. On occasion, you can find Lottie looking quite different with smaller eyes and less definition on her face. This is because when you usually see her, she has a ton of makeup on, to the point where she looks like a different person without it. She will even comment about her appearance, often being embarrassed that she didn't have time to put her makeup on. Hell, Lyle will even comment about his niece, stating that he's very proud of her, but worries over the amount of makeup she uses. This is likely a comment about how low Lottie's self-esteem is, and she's balancing her own preconceived notions about her looks and overdoes the makeup. This actually plays well into her timid and kind character and gives another layer, a more relatable personal layer that is very fresh to see from a character like this. I hope we see more of Lottie in the future, and I hope we see them play around with this idea, this theme more in future games, maybe even overcoming her self-esteem issues. This could also mean we see her without makeup a lot more often. Either way, Lottie has grown a lot on me since Happy Home Designer, and I do credit Happy Home Paradise with that. So I wouldn't be mad if they made a new DLC or standalone Happy Home game again, really developed on the Lottie character more. New Horizons was the first mainline Animal Crossing game to be in high definition. Yeah, that's fucking crazy, right? With the ability to see everything a lot more clear, the developers needed to add a lot more visual detail to the game. I've shot on New Horizons left and right through this burg, and well deserved, but you'll never hear me complaining about the visuals.
last one.
It's definitely the best looking Animal Crossing in the series, and even in environmentally it's a bit different from the other games, it still by far has the most visual detail. One thing many fans noticed almost immediately playing New Horizons was the strangely detailed knees on your player character. Honestly, given how cartoony and bubbly everything else is, the strangely accurate knee detail is honestly a bit off-putting. Of course, with this came the memes, with one of the best mentioning Tom Nook breaking them. I don't know, I still think if I had to choose an interactive and replayable minigame mode to play with your friends online, or detailed knees. It's a hard decision, but I still think I'd take the knees. It's just the best. Where's the minigame island? God damn it. In one of the stranger collaborations, the Animal Crossing series decided to add a few villagers that resembled pet translator products. In the updated E+ version of the original GameCube game, you can scan in the respective bow and meow cards to get unique villagers that visually resemble these electronic devices. These devices come from Takara, a Japanese toy company, and were marketed towards pet owners who wanted to translate their pets' barks or meows into understandable human language. Obviously, this was being more used as a toy for children than actually trying to understand your dog on a philosophical level, but given the popularity of the Animal Crossing series, they found it fit to collaborate with the game, where Nintendo agreed, and thus Bow and Meow were created. These are some of the most rare villagers in overall popularity and ability to get, considering they are exclusive to this one version of the game. They have also never been brought back, as Takara likely didn't want to continue to promote a toy that would have been ultimately very dated in future releases of Animal Crossing. Aside from being clearly visually different, they don't have many other differences or uniquenesses to them besides this, even to the point they share similar house layouts as other villagers. I'd love to see these guys brought back in a strange commemorative way, but considering these reference an old early 2000s Japanese toy, there wouldn't be much reason to bring them back. It's always a double-edged sword in situations with these collaborations like this, because they usually result in some really cool, unique content we would have never otherwise seen, but often become rare due to the contracts agreement running out, or like in this case, the relevancy just isn't there anymore. Nobody knows what the fuck a Bow Meow Takara toy is. The original Animal Crossing hit at a kind of a weird time in culture. It hit near the beginning of the internet, which occurred just a few years before. In the earliest forums of video game forums online, there was a lot of talk about the first Animal Crossing game on GameCube. Many fans came to these forums to share hints, stories, and rumors about the game to each other. Like any other forum, especially in the early days, mischief would spawn rumors of things that were so absurdly fake by today's standards, but that were fully believed by many back in the day. One of the many rumors from these early internet forum days was the cursed villager known as Brutus the Bulldog. Brutus visually was way more striking than any other villagers in the game, with a deep purple making up his main color and bright red eyes that darted into the player's soul. Supposedly, Brutus was like any other villager that could move into the player's town and live amongst them. However, after some time, Brutus would begin to start acting a little strange, particularly towards the player. He will do things like send the player letters that are just filled with binary code and look like the writings of a manic AI system. Not only this, but if the player visited Brutus's home, upon entering the home, the game would immediately reset, and upon loading the game back up, Brutus would be gone without a trace of evidence he was ever there. Why Brutus? With this initial rumor, there would be others who expanded on the rumor with claims that Brutus bricked their GameCube or destroyed their copy of Animal Crossing. He came out of the GameCube's controller slot, hit the eject button, picked up my GameCube disc copy of Animal Crossing, and snapped it over his knee. This is obviously hogwash, especially by today's standards, but back then this wasn't super common and was easily believable by many who played the game. There's a bulldog in the series who is named Mac, but in the French version is known as Brutus, and this is about the closest thing in terms of evidence of a Brutus being in the game series, and this guy wasn't even added until a later entry, making it impossible for him to be this Brutus. Again, this is just early internet rumors, but brings into question the possibility of the developers adding in a new type of villager, maybe a creepy villager type, or maybe even classifying them as off-putting or something, where they just kind of act weird and generally just cause mischief with the player. Obviously, you couldn't bring everything from this rumor, like the game crashing and shit, but I think this would be a great way to add some more of those creepy moments I've been talking about. Going back to super rare special characters to run into, we take a look back at the original GameCube release of Animal Crossing. This next character is one that only most completionists, or maybe more perfectionists in this case, would have seen, as this character would have only spawned when the player has maintained a perfect field rank for 15 days in their town. This basically means keeping each acre at a high enough grade for it to be considered perfect. This does mean that you need to painstakingly pick weeds and other things up off the ground to achieve this though. After 15 days of perfection, a new character known as Farley will spawn at the town's fountain and gives the player a golden axe for their dedication. As for Farley, his origin is just as strange as his appearance here. He is clearly another human, or at least humanoid, as he appears to be a short old man with really long white hair. Many speculate he is an environmental guardian that looks over the environment of your town and ensures it is kept up with and maintained. This would explain why he rewards the player for taking the time to keep their town's environment clean and perfect. Not only this, but he appears on the statue at the fountain and seems to have been there before the player, and maybe even before the villagers even inhabited the land. Farley is by far one of the characters that has the least amount of lore and information on. This is all speculation, and he is a gameplay mechanic first and foremost, and not much else after, unfortunately. Considering he only appeared in the first game when they weren't adding a lot of lore to these characters back then, this isn't all that surprising, but I'd still love to see the developers bring back Farley and divulge more into what he is and where he comes from. I've always just considered Farley to be this game's equivalent to the Harvest Goddess from the Harvest Moon series. So yeah, much like the other character who is more deity than animal and who also gives the player an axe, Farley is more mystery than man. In terms of references, the Animal Crossing series generally keeps it within the baseball stadium, if that makes sense. This hasn't stopped some stranger references to make their way through, and one of the more noticeable ones comes from the Animal Crossing New Horizons game. As we've discussed, the fake paintings are visually different, sometimes more subtle than others, and will always be different in some small way. This piece of art, known as the academic painting, will include a small key taped to the back of the painting, revealing that it is in fact a fake. Not only is this a strange way to reveal a fake painting, as the clue is usually within the painting itself, but is also a reference to a critically acclaimed book, The Da Vinci Code. As I've never read the book, and shit, I think I saw the shitty Tom Hanks movie. Apologies if this next part is a bit inaccurate, but apparently in the book, the protagonist finds a key behind the Madonna on the Rocks painting after finding a clue about that on the back of the Mona Lisa painting. While this isn't the exact painting that was referenced in the book, it's still a nice nod to a whole other genre of media, and something we don't see often in the Animal Crossing series. I'd love to see more book and movie references like this. Like if they ever added the Declaration of Independence to the game as a furniture item, and you go up to it with a torch, it slowly reveals Nicolas Cage's fat mug on the back of it. That's how you know it's fake. During the Nintendo DS and 3DS era, Nintendo was testing out smaller micro software known as DSiWare. These would follow the WiiWare formula of making games and applications for very little that are more on the quality of mobile games rather than full-length games. I never saw a piece of software like this for over like $10 or so these were generally a cheaper route to kill time on your handheld. Considering the DS is a mobile handheld system, Nintendo attempted to add quality-of-life applications like themed clocks and calculators to it. They had a few different versions of these applications, each unique from one another based on what game they're referencing. Animal Crossing, of course, had their own version of these applications with the clock and calculator apps existing. These are really criminally simple and are exactly what they advertise. If you expected an extra small minigame or anything else to do in this, you'll be sorely mistaken. At least the calculator had a few more uses than the clock, as it could be used in tandem with Animal Crossing to calculate your bell amounts or some shit. Not only that, but it could also convert into different random units, and overall was a pretty competent calculator that was themed after Animal Crossing. There were also a few Easter eggs here, like the fact that if your number results in all the same digit 3 times in a row, you'll see Tom Nook at the bottom of the screen with balloons. The clock is definitely the worst of the two apps, as every variation of the Nintendo DS came with its own internal clock, so really what's the fucking point? You can set alarms and have a selection of like 3 Animal Crossing tracks play for the alarm, but other than that, this is definitely a very useless application. Maybe these would be worth it if you're the ultimate Animal Crossing fan, but even at $2 each, this just wouldn't ever be worth it to me. Also, why the hell did they not just bundle these two together and maybe added a little bit of gameplay in the way of a minigame or something? Seems like a no-brainer. Considering these were obsolete when they came out, it's likely Nintendo learned from their ways, and thank God. I I really didn't want to see an Animal Crossing themed data management application on the Switch 2 or anything. Have fucking Tom Nook wheeling my fucking data blocks over. Listen, variant consoles are cool and all, but have you ever had yourself a variant handheld? Yeah, I feel like handhelds were made for the variant console market, as their entry price isn't egregious and you're likely to upgrade, so, you know, why not get the Zelda-themed DS? Nintendo was king of the variant console, starting back with the original Game Boy, where just about anything could get their name on one of these consoles and be backed up by Nintendo. They would later use this to build hype around a specific game, where they still do this on occasion with stuff like the Animal Crossing New Horizons Switch. Back when Animal Crossing Wild World was launching, there was supposedly a competition in Sweden that was giving out seasonal-themed Nintendo DSs based on the 4 different seasons in Animal Crossing. These were very low print and is believed that they were being used for contest prizes and other rewards for those in the industry. As of now, all 4 seasons have been confirmed to exist with the help of YouTuber L Supersonic Q, where he basically tracked down these consoles and their origins through an investigative series on his channel, which I recommend checking out if this entry intrigues you. He goes into much more detail about it. Swedish distributor Bergsala has confirmed that these consoles existed and were indeed handed out for competitions, with one of the competition winners confirming they still own the spring edition they won from a contest. The contest tasked players with creating their own unique Animal Crossing character for the Animal Crossing universe, with the winner getting one of these custom seasonal DSs. The other 3 seasons have been confirmed to be sent out, with the owners not going public and providing more context to these variants. Supersonic also found a strange discrepancy in a few of the winter version images he was provided and proposed that there's a possibility there are multiple versions of these handhelds for each season out there. These have been deemed some of the most rare official consoles to own, as the remaining consoles are just straight up unaccounted for, and it's not like you can just go to eBay and find one for sale. I guess we're lucky enough that the owner of the spring variant came forward to provide better detail of the console, but I'd love to see all 4 of these in a collection one day. Not my collection by any means, but I just love to see them all displayed all together or something. As for the consoles themselves, I really like the designs and how they almost look like they were hand painted. Considering the minimalistic design of the variant consoles we get nowadays, especially from Nintendo, I'd love to see them go full ham again with these designs and slap a painting of Tom Nook's mug on the back of my Switch, please. Not only is the museum home to its own bug fight club, but it has a few harder secrets to find as well. If you walk into the back room of the bug exhibit and equip your camera, you'll get a clearer view of the corner of this wall. A small bug will be present in the corner that is usually out of view, and at first it seems like this may have been an accidental placement, but considering it's confirmed that the bug will change from different players testing this, it's likely just a small Easter egg for curious players to find. Considering the bug exhibit is mostly open, allowing for bugs to freely move around, it's not surprising that one would fly a bit too far from their exhibit and just end up here. I just hope there aren't any of these big-ass roaches hanging out above me. You might want to keep your head on a swivel next time you visit the bug collection in your museum. When building up your town or island, a big thing to consider is which villagers you want in your town. Everyone has their preferences with the villagers, and considering how many there are in the series, especially now, it can be hard to find your intended villager. With this, players have broken down the villager game mechanics to a T, with things like trading villagers and a term used for if a villager has moved off your island and has nowhere else to go, i.e. like a friend's island or something. These disregarded villagers enter what fans deem the void, where they will never come back from, at least under regular circumstances. But basically the void holds a villager that moves out for up to 4 days after they move out, and during those 4 days, anyone visiting your island with an empty plot will get that animal from the void to move into their town. However, after those 4 days, the animal is deleted from this void to forever forget everything about you and your island. All the gifts, the letters, the laughs, everything is erased. While it sounds sad, it's only happening to the animals you don't want on your island, so... Oh, you're gonna be hypocritical? Oh, now you feel bad for kicking out Scoot because he's ugly? Overall, this only helped to feed the trading community online, as players were able to track those villagers they sent to the void, allowing other players who wanted these villagers to visit their island and thus autofilling that resident back on their home island. The whole void concept really highlights the cruel popularity contest we run with the different villagers in the games, but considering there's only 10 slots with over 400 potential villagers, I mean, someone's got to get cut, son, you know what I'm saying? Sorry, Ozzy, get the fuck out. Animal Island is something that I wasn't super familiar with from the first Animal Crossing game on GameCube. This is mainly because the feature was locked behind the Game Boy Advance connector cable, which I did not have. Yeah, you were pretty much chump status in a lot of the games back in the day on the GameCube if you didn't have this stupid-ass cable. In Animal Crossing on GameCube, and later introduced as a normal gameplay mechanic in E+, the Animal Island was an extended portion of land that the player could explore and meet unique villagers on. The island has unique fruits like coconuts, and since it's always the summer season there, it's a great way to stock up on summer fish and bugs. To access the island, the player will either need to connect your Game Boy Link cable, or if you're cool, you can just stroll down to the dock and Captain will be waiting for you there, like a goddamn Uber.
I'm your Uber driver. Get in.
After chatting to the lad, he will take you on the island in a similar boat ride you take to Tortimer Island in New Leaf. On the way, Captain will sing his sea shanties, and you can even pass across something pretty terrifying in the water. Thalassophobia warning ahead, you can run into this gigantic shadow of a whale on occasion in your boat ride with Captain, which is equally intriguing and terrifying, but we'll talk about the whale in more detail later. Upon arriving on the island, you'll find it's a lot smaller than your village and features a bungalow and a customizable flag. Again, since it seems to act a whole hell of a lot like Tortimer's Island, I assume this was a place to come and grind for expensive bugs and fish. And E+, not only did they make the island a base game venture, but they also added exclusive fish you could only catch out on the island's beaches, like the pufferfish and the blue marlin. The whole purpose of the island initially in the Animal Crossing version was to help promote the sales of the link cable, give them another reason to use it. When linking your Game Boy, you could access the island in a top 2D version of the island, allowing the player to do most everything they could in the main game, like fishing, digging, and interacting with the islander. While this was a pretty cool idea, I think Nintendo realized how much of a hassle this all was and how the market was already responding to the link cable, and ultimately removed it in the eReader Plus version, only to then replace it with another clunky peripheral, but still. At the end of the day, while it was unfortunate I never got to experience the island, looking back on it, it's super cool to see Animal Crossing in this way, being played on a Game Boy Advance, and maybe the closest thing we'll ever get to a top-down 2D Animal Crossing. As we've discussed, New Horizons, although it didn't add a whole lot in terms of overall content, definitely added its fair share of cooler small shit to see here and there. A lot of this comes in the way of newly dynamic wallpapers that were added to the game. You could tell the developers had some fun with these, especially ones like the aforementioned graveyard wallpaper with the ghost that shows up and scares the player. Much like in previous games, there are your fair share of villagers who love the sport of wrestling and boxing. They'll have their house to match, usually with a full-ass boxing ring in their home, along with the appropriate wallpaper and flooring. New Horizons took it a step further and added in a new crowd wallpaper that dynamically moves, but also you can get the crowd to cheer if you have the judge's bell. The crowd will also flash cameras as they take pictures of your epicness. It's overall a super unique piece and one that brings a wrestling themed room to the next level. For my usual house designs, I generally stay away from the dynamic wallpapers, but they really work for building out a themed room. Even though I don't use them all that often, I'd love to see them add more dynamic wallpapers and floorings with even more small Easter eggs that are harder to find. Hell, just make this a normal thing that when two pieces of furniture are in the same room, they give some weird results or something. Who knows, but I think they could explore this a lot more in future games. Of all the potential relationships between different characters, you expect that these three share some sort of relation with one another. Timmy and Tommy have been around since the very first game, helping Tom Nook in his business ventures and overall using Nook as a mentor of sorts. I hope he's showing the kids how to shape up someone's kneecap after a late payment. It wasn't until Wild World where we learned that Timmy and Tommy don't actually share blood relation to Tom Nook, even though previously they were referred to as Tom Nook's nephews. Apparently, at some point in time, Tom Nook saw these two baby Tanukis on their own and decided to adopt them and take them under his wing. Turns out the old guy isn't all that bad, although it's totally in his nature to immediately put them to work. I mean, this guy's an orphan's worst nightmare. I'm so sorry, Timmy and Tommy. So yeah, while Timmy and Tommy are identical twins and are blood related, they don't share any direct relationship with Tom Nook and are rather an identical group of Tanukis that are just kind of hangs out with each other. It makes you wonder what happened to Timmy and Tommy's parents and how they found their way to Tom Nook. But until another game in the series for a lore dump, we'll just have to sit back and speculate. As we know, Brewster the Pigeon runs the Roost, the local coffee shop around town. He is very knowledgeable in his art of coffee making, to the point that he will even get slightly offended if the player decides to let their coffee cool before drinking it. This is because Brewster constantly states that the perfect cup of coffee's temperature is 175.38 degrees Fahrenheit or 79 degrees Celsius. This is for drinking as well, not the temperature that it was brewed. And at this temperature, it brings out more flavors in the coffee, apparently. According to some real-life coffee temperature results and checks, we can compare these to a real-life standard. McDonald's coffee pre the hot coffee instant was served around in up to 190 degrees Fahrenheit, with the modern industry standard being generally around the 160 to the 170 range. So technically Brewster isn't too far off in his calculations for the perfect temperature, and hey, he doesn't have all that legal liability to worry about. So yeah, why not let's add the extra 5 degrees and really tingle some tongues out there. All I know is I'll never be the one to disrespect Brewster to his face by blowing on my coffee. I'll drink that shit immediately at all the risk of esophageal cancer. But hey, at least I had the respect of a fucking pigeon. A small portion from the original Animal Crossing that I really miss is both the dumping ground and the lost and found from the police station. The police station was a popular building from the first game and returned later in New Leaf, and the point of the station was to go in and take back your quote-unquote lost belongings. Yeah, it's basically a general lost and found where random items will appear day in and day out, and acts very similarly to the recycle box in New Horizons. However, you would be met with a couple dog officers, with the one on the inside acting aloof and allowing the player to claim all of the quote-unquote lost items. Other than this, there wasn't much use for the police station rather than a few smaller things to see around the room. One such item that's intrigued players is a wanted poster up on the wall that has a couple of pictures on it. These two individuals have never been officially identified, and given how small the poster is and how kind of minimalistic it is, it's tough to even know where to begin identifying these fugitives. However, this hasn't stopped players from throwing out their speculation as to IDing these two. The face on the left has been generally accepted to be a reference to Booster from Super Mario RPG. He's a crazed bearded man who wears a helmet and genuinely is the closest thing I could see this thing being. As for the mouse lady on the right, that's anybody's guess. A few theories suggest that it could be Imanuki from the Pokemon TCG, all the way to Michael Jackson wearing mouse ears. Hell, it could even be this character from Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers for all we know. These two have never been mentioned or brought back to the series and will likely never know their true identities because it's just a throwaway poster. It's likely as simple as either made-up characters or references to other games like with Booster from Super Mario RPG. Whatever the case is with these two, I'd love to see Nintendo reference this theory in a future game, maybe even showing these two finally caught and serving out their time in prison. New Horizons introduced the Animal Crossing world to cellular devices. Let's go! Now I can destroy my life through social media in the game too. Now, this isn't an exclusive New Horizons thing and is often used to make a menu more relatable to the player in a game. However, I always feel like the phone menu, unless in a GTA game, is always a bit strange, and it feels like that here. In a world where cell phones exist, none of this other shit would be happening, at least not to the rate it is in the game. I don't know how people have phones and don't have phone addiction, but hey, this episode has already been pretty heady, so maybe I'm just looking too much into this. Anyway, with the introduction of cell phones, the game also introduces customizable phone cases. Man, Tom Nook really saw Apple and said, let me do that shit. These customizable phone cases act like customizable patterns, and you can put just about anything on the back of your phone. Along with the ability to customize these phone cases, there is also a couple of special phone cases that reference other Animal Crossing games and software. The Paradise Planning phone case was introduced in the 2.0 update and references the Happy Home Paradise DLC that released for the game. Not only that, but there is a Pocket Camp phone case that takes on a more minimalistic look and references the popular phone app. Even though it's only two options and something as small as a phone case, it's cool to see developers reference these other games even in a small way. This just begs the question, why aren't there like New Leaf, Wild World, and City Folk phone cases? Come on, guys. It's not a huge deal, but if they went as far as making these two unique phone cases, they should have added more than just those two. Starting off today's video, we have another entry in search of an unidentified individual, this time being a potential third police officer animal. As we know, as far back as Dobutsu no Mori, the police station has appeared in most of the series staples, all except New Horizons. The player would enter and claim their lost items, which would rarely actually belong to the player, but the aloof dog running the operation is none the wiser. So I used to call this place the easiest lick under the sun. In a previous part, we discussed the potential identities of the two fugitives seen on a poster at the back of the police station, but that mysterious poster isn't the only thing on this back wall. We also see another poster of a different police dog that is clearly not the same breed as Copper or Booker, and this has led many to try and identify the dog on the poster, and might even be a completely unique character. Even looking at the dog's villager type, there aren't any that really fit the visual description of this dog, beyond maybe Goldie, but again, she's more round than this dog, I guess you could say. More than likely, this is just a small play on the Uncle Sam poster in order to recruit more animals into the police force, and some players read a little bit too far into it. It's also worth noting that the police station in Animal Crossing New Leaf has a similar poster, but with a clearly different dog on the poster. I will say it would be cool to finally see the dog in the poster in the game one day, maybe even along with the fugitives in the poster. I think that'd be such a deep cut, it'd only make like 900 people scream with joy, but it'd be so worth it, dude. Or at the very least, bring back the police station for the chance to even see these classic posters return. But hey, I guess the crime rate in New Horizons is a fat goose egg 0 because the boys in blue only stop in when it's time to grab a cup of joe. I mean, it's ridiculous, dude. I've seen some shady shit Curly gets up to, man. Throughout this series, there are a number of characters that are mentioned but are never seen, and these often make themselves known from sending letters to the player or by interacting with the player but never really being seen. One of the strange unseen characters that stands out is known as the Singing Bug Boy. The who? The what? The Singing Bug Boy. You heard me right. In the original Animal Crossing, at random times when interacting with certain snooty villagers, they will show you a letter they got in the mail that reads as a song about bugs. These letters vary, with each showing a different tip for catching the bugs in the game, with the signature sign-off of the Bug Boy being bugs. To our knowledge, the Singing Bug Boy is never seen in the series, unless the Bug Boy is someone we know who enjoys bugs. Yeah, this could have been a very young version of Flick in New Horizons, who runs the bug off, as that is the closest character who would have been young enough to be referred to as a child, aka a boy, and he clearly loves catching bugs. There is no basis on this theory besides the fact that those two aspects kind of line up, but who knows, it could be one of the Wario World Spritelings for all I know, dude. I don't know why, but when I hear Singing Bug Boy, I just think of those little annoying assholes, man. It's things like these random strange letters that really added to the atmosphere of the first Animal Crossing and made it feel larger than it actually really was. Surely at some point you're gonna meet this elusive Bug Boy, right? Go for a whole fucking century, dude. You'll never meet this character face to face. He's careful like that. I think we're alike in that way, Bug Boy.
I don't think we're alike at all, Mr. White.
Animal Crossing Wild World doesn't get enough credit for how it maintained the quirk of the first Animal Crossing while doing some completely new and unique stuff. Things like the option to donate to a less fortunate neighboring town known as Boondocks really kept alive the odd nature of these games. Let me explain a little bit. In Animal Crossing Wild World, you can donate to a town that is located north of your own, where depending on how much money you donate, you will receive different gifts from the town. This is all dependent on how many bells you donate, where each goal you will start to receive feathers in the mail, ending with the illustrious rainbow feather, which you'll need to donate right around 6.5 million bells to acquire it. Sure, a rainbow feather hair accessory may not be worth 6.5 mil, but you do get to help some less fortunate animals along the way. Or do you actually? There's some theories online as to if the Boondocks actually exist or not, and if the whole time you're actually getting scammed by someone in your own town for donation money. The main suspect in this scam is actually the mayor, Tortimer, himself, and this isn't a theory without some legs, as this spawned from things that your own town's villagers say on occasion about Tortimer. Stuff like, one day I decided to go and donate my hard-worked bells, and when I donated my bells, Tortimer murmured, "I'm having steak tonight." Do you think it's a coincidence? I think not. There are other reports from villagers of Tortimer muttering about buying a new plasma screen TV after villagers donated. What a fucking asshole. The ego is out of control on Tortimer. This is all super fishy, and I gotta say, I never really trusted this old Galapagos fuck, but who's still sending all these feathers, you know? Does Tortimer have a stash of different colored chickens he plucks feathers from? Also, is the post office staff in on this, or are they being tricked too? How deep does this shit go, dude? In reality, we may never know, but by taking a closer look at the details given in the letters from the Boondoxians, along with what Pelly or Phyllis says about the donations, we may find a clear answer to if Boondocks even actually exists, and if they do, if they're really as down bad as they're made out to be. Depending on the time of day when you visit the post office, you'll either get Pelly or Phyllis, in which they'll tell you more about the Boondoxians the more you donate. They state that the Boondoxians have to eat grilled cheeses, but without bread and cheese, so they have to eat dirt instead, so not grilled cheese at all. She could have just skipped over that one. This may just be a case of over-exaggeration, though, as later on you'll get a letter from a Boondoxian stating that they actually have to eat day-old donuts. You'll continue to find out more about them as you donate and what your donations actually are going to. For example, a younger member of the Boondocks, known as Tiny Tommy Hicks, is finally able to get his dream birthday where they all have frothy mud drinks. Hell yeah, dude. Sounds like a blast. I'll take mine to go, dude. As you begin donating into the millions, you'll begin to notice a change in the Boondocks' letters in that they are coming into some serious fucking wealth now. So much wealth that it becomes clear at some point that they are richer than the entire town you live in, or at least they know how to spend that shit, dude. I mean, look at some of the things they're getting, like mansions, gold dentures, and an arcade machine that, sure, it only has Donkey Kong playable, but it's a fucking arcade machine. Honestly, to me, the Boondoxians sound like a group of hippos who are happier than a pig in shit in their situation, who just happen to be viewed as poor and got insane donations because of it. By the end of your donation frenzy, Boondocks will be transformed into the bustling Boondopolis, all out of the kindness of the player's heart. You gotta love to see it. Either that or Tortimer just ran off with the biggest lick in Animal Crossing history, but fuck. I mean, how else do you think he had enough to finally retire, dude? Brother found a group of exotic birds and dreamt up one of the craziest schemes you've ever seen. The worst part is it actually fucking worked. As mentioned, Tiny Tommy Hicks is a resident of Boondocks and is a 5-year-old as of his birthday, which you get a notice of after donating a certain amount of bells. The name Tiny Tommy Hicks is a play on the child character from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, known as Tiny Tim Cratchit, with the last name Hicks also referring to a slang word for lower class individuals. So this was all in all, was really supposed to reference the financial standings of Boondocks. Imagine being born into poverty and being named like Broke Bitch or something. It's kind of wild. Anyway, Tiny Tommy Hicks is never seen in the game, but we already know one Tommy who is a Tanuki, so perhaps this is just an even smaller Tanuki, probably with a bum leg or something, you know? A cute reference for sure, but I would have loved to be able to visit Boondocks and even see Tiny Tommy Hicks and see the fruits of all our donations. I'd also like to see a return of Boondocks or a newer version or something, as it does teach kids the importance of being charitable. And if they did bring it back, I'd love to see the town and be actually able to visit it and see the progress between each donation. Plus, it'd give the series a lot more NPCs to learn about and their backstories like Tiny Tommy Hicks, and possibly even more villagers to move to your own town from Boondocks. Another mysterious character we never actually get to see is the phone clerk from Animal Crossing Wild World. In that game, during the boot up screen, you can call the phone clerk for help changing some extra settings. Obviously, we never get to see this clerk, but there may be a few clues as to who the identity of this clerk is based on how they speak over the phone. The villagers and most animals in the game will speak their iconic Animal Crossing language known as Animalese. But there are a few choice characters that speak in the other language known as Babylese. Maybe it's Bibelese. The only characters who speak Bibelese, at least in Wild World, is other humans and the snowman. So unless Frosty's big ass found a new career path, I think it's safe to say it's likely another human character. You could also call the phone clerk from your player's attic phone, in which you'll get the same settings as during the boot up. And overall, this isn't one of the biggest pressing mysteries that needs to be solved from Animal Crossing, but it is intriguing to consider the identity of such a nothing character from the game. especially considering they are one of the few who don't speak Animalese in the game. I don't know, there aren't enough humans we know about in Animal Crossing besides all the player characters ever, so it's likely it's just another villager looking human, but hey, we'll probably never fully know. When it comes to cut content from Animal Crossing, there isn't a whole lot to look at, to be honest. You'd be much better off spotting regional differences to see anything new from these games, but there are a few examples of strange stuff that ended up being unused. Take, for example, Animal Crossing City Folk, which is known to have added the addition of me characters, mainly being the ability for your villager to look like your me, and if they're super fucked up. Catch me on a late Saturday night in 2009, fucking making a fucked up me, dude. In the unused assets of City Folk, we can find a placeholder me head that belongs to one Satoru Iwata. This isn't super surprising to see as it resembles the one he was using at the time and after, and we've seen him use this me during Animal Crossing presentations, so this is just likely a placeholder asset that was left in the files of the game. Sure, maybe this was hinting at the fact that Miis might have played a bigger role in City Folk, maybe even becoming villagers themselves, but considering there is only one placeholder me and there's already other me functionality in the game, that's kind of a stretch. I'm just gonna say that. While there isn't much more to this one, it highlights a time past for Nintendo. I feel like some of the charms Satoru Iwata brought to the company actually died off when he passed almost a decade ago at this point. I don't know, maybe it's just coincidence, but there was a special magic to the Miis and thus the Wii and Wii U era, and things like this are a great reminder of that time and how the company has changed since, for some better and for some worse. A small correction I need to make from an earlier part of the iceberg, or rather just adding information, is the number of original Animal Crossing versions there are. So we went over the N64 Japanese exclusive Dobutsu no Mori, then there is the updated version of that called Dobutsu no Mori Plus, which brought the game to GameCube in Japan. From that, the game was brought over to Western audiences and was known as Animal Crossing, the first one I ever played. Then that is where Japan once again updated the Dobutsu no Mori Plus version with Dobutsu no Mori E+. If I remember right, I believe I failed to mention the existence of the non-E+ version of Dobutsu no Mori Plus, and this is an important distinction because there are some pretty big differences between the two, mainly being the wave of almost full exclusive villagers to the E+ version, including the next entry, an ostrich named Nindori. That's right, look at him. He's epic. Unlike most of the other added E+ villagers, Nindori was actually being used as a pseudo-advertising gimmick, kind of like the other brand collaborations we've seen with villagers. The Japanese Nintendo magazine known as Nintendo Dream hosted a contest to its readers where they were able to submit their own Animal Crossing villager design for a chance to be in the game, very similar to the Swedish Animal Crossing DS contest. Volume 100 announced a winner who was Suzukaze-san with this as his submission. Not only did Suzukaze's design fit in the world of Animal Crossing, it also referenced the popular Spice Orange GameCube variant. Nindori is specifically a pretty hard villager to get, even tougher than some of the third-party villagers we discussed, as he could only move into the player's town via scanning his e-card, which was only given out in issue 102 of Nintendo Dream, making it pretty rare to find today. Not only was this villager fully exclusive to Japan, but he was also behind a paywall of sorts. Damn, dude, the early days of DLC were the wild fucking west. Imagine that today. If you want to play as Terminator in the new Mortal Kombat, you have to have a subscription to the Game Informer, but only if you live in France, dude. Nintendo Dream also featured Nindori in a short manga series that was printed in the following magazines from the contest ending. Not only that, but Nintendo Dream still uses Nindori as their mascot and has taken on a second life as their full-time standing mascot. Look at that. Unlike all the other ostrich villagers, Nindori is the only one that has never returned to the series, which I find a little bit strange. I get the villagers referencing old technology probably shouldn't return, but considering Nintendo Dream is still a huge magazine that assumingly has decent relations with Nintendo of Japan, I find it a bit strange we haven't seen Nindori return, or at least a small reference to him. Perhaps it's the fact that the magazine kind of took the character for their mascot instead of keeping it just as the game character, but regardless, that's the story of one of the rarest villagers to get in all of Animal Crossing. So we know Animal Crossing is pretty stern about following the rules that's placed on the player, like making sure to save at the end of play every fucking time. There are consequences to your actions, as in that case, you get screamed at by Rossetti. But there is an even more extreme punishment we've yet to touch on. The original Animal Crossing on GameCube allowed you to connect to another player's town and visit them through inserting their memory card into the B slot on your GameCube. While this was pretty tedious, it did allow some sort of social play, even though you can't actually interact with each other at the same time. It was cool to see all the way back then, and it paved the way for future games to have some great multiplayer. If you happen to lose power or intentionally reset your game while visiting your friend's town, the game will curse you, quite literally, the next time you spawn in. Not only do you lose everything you had on your person, you lose any progress you made up to that point when visiting your friend's town. And the next time you power up the game and exit your home, your player will have been cursed with a gyroid face. Yeah, it's pretty horrifying. I mean, it's bad enough on the actual gyroid, but to see it on your villager and to not know it's coming, it's pretty terrifying. It'll be permanent until the next time you load up your game, and is one of the best deterrents I've seen for not breaking the game's rules. Fuck a Resetti yelling at me. I don't want to experience this, dude. A lot of people online consider this one a glitch, actually, since it does seem like the game accidentally swapped the face textures of your character in a gyroid. But no, okay, this is fully intentional and is a thing of true horrors, truly making it a hard lesson to learn. Now we'll never forget to not reset while in another player's town, or else you'll be cursed to live like the anomaly Coco. We've already taken a look at the haunted paintings that were introduced in Animal Crossing New Horizons, but this entry takes a deeper look into some of the theories as to how Red acquires these paintings and what exactly caused them to be haunted in the first place. One of the more popular theories for this comes from Swanky Box on YouTube, where he dedicates a full video to this topic. The theory he constructs in this video is that given Red is in a boat now instead of his traditional tent, perhaps he has expanded his trade route, so to speak. He's most likely opened himself up to trading with other boats, including some not so nice pirates probably. You know, what are pirates known to be hauling on occasion? Cursed or haunted treasure? And so the theory basically states that all of this fake art in New Horizons is cursed from this pirate curse. The curse is theorized to punish those who trade fake paintings as a way to get back at the grifter. Of course, Red found a way to profit off this curse and thus pushes the curse onto others. Joke's on him, dude. I'm gonna put them all up in my house and recreate Zach Bagan's haunted museum and charge commission, dumbass. Talk about a come up off a come up, dude. There's another theory that suggests Red's curse is only lifted when he offloads all of his haunted paintings to someone else, explaining why he's always so eager to sell you a painting, and gets a little weary when you try to take a closer look. Although then again, this could be also disproved by the fact he only lets the player buy one painting a day, so who really knows what's going on with dude, but I've never trusted Red, and I probably never will. I mean, you tell me the difference. I don't see one. While there are a good bit of regional differences between the original Animal Crossing and the mini versions of Dabutsu no Mori, there is surprisingly only one fish that is exclusive to the Japanese versions of Animal Crossing. Well, that and the IQ game in China, but we'll touch on that one a little later. This fish is known as the Hirabuna, not the Herobrina, the Hirabuna, and is a local fish to the waters of Japan and Taiwan. And this was replaced by the brook trout and the North American and the European releases of the game. The Hirabuna in real life is a freshwater fish that can be found most commonly in Lake Biwa and is widely unknown outside of these areas. Seeing as the fish is already pretty uncommon in real life, it makes sense to end up replacing this with a bit more common fish and found in more places around the world. But still, I wouldn't have minded to know about this Hirabana as a kid. Half the knowledge I have on fish and bugs comes from Animal Crossing, so I would have loved to learn about this fish I'd probably likely never get to know about otherwise, but hey, this was before curiosity was invented, so boring old western fish is what we got, guys. The idea that Tom Nook is this crooked business owner who will do anything to make a little extra cheddar isn't unfounded. No matter how much Nintendo tries to erase his past, we all remember, dude. If you were fortunate enough not to have to be legitimately intimidated by a raccoon, then let me enlighten you as to what time this guy was on back in the day. Real Tanuki hours, dude. In the first Animal Crossing, when you're done working for Tom Nook, he will suggest a payment plan to pay off the rest of his debt. However, he jokingly mentions he may have to send the raccoon goons after the player, quickly followed by him stating he was joking. But I don't know, man. He was a little quick to suggest that. Obviously, this is just a risque joke referencing stuff like loan sharks and the mob, but it does make you think about Tom Nook in a different way. All these little jokes and quips have to come from somewhere, right? I have a feeling Tom Nook funds his business in another way. Yeah, dude, this is clearly a money laundering scheme. How else does it make sense he can buy anything you bring in? He's a drug kingpin and he accidentally let it slip he has gangs of goons at his beck and call, casually playing it off as a joke. Sure, he's never actually acted on these threats, at least from what we've seen in the games, but considering there are other Tanukis who look like Tom Nook in the universe, I'd be willing to bet the big bucks that the Raccoon Goon Gang is real after all. Tom Nook really out here having shooters on standby, running one of the biggest cons in the world and has been in operation for years. Who's to say he even stopped? Maybe he's just better at hiding it now. I don't know, I'm rambling, but I'll tell you this, I trust Tom Nook as much as I trust Red. One's cursed and one's a fucking drug dealer. Man, here I am talking about the painful truth of not owning a Game Boy Link cable in the early 2000s again, as the next entry takes us back out to the Animal Island. More specifically, it takes us into the deep waters of the ocean that surrounds our town as we ride to the island with Captain. Depending on the month and your luck, you may have a chance to see this big-ass shadow lurking in the water, completely dwarfing Captain's boat. The whale is nothing more than an Easter egg, although given its shadowy appearance, it has led many players to believe it can actually be caught. Players like Biological Perfection on YouTube went as far as this to test this theory, hacking the game allowing the player to be able to walk on the water and also spawn the whale shadow in other places on the map. You're actually unable to catch the whale shadow if you are standing on the ocean, and given how big the shadow is, the only way to actually catch the shadow is to spawn it in a river in which you can jankily try and catch the whale, which will result in you catching a arapaima, and a glitched text box that welcomes the player in will appear, which of course is not supposed to be there as it belongs to the Able Sisters dialogue. So yeah, this was never meant to be caught clearly, as there is no data like a whale model in the game for it, resulting in it being replaced by honestly an appropriately large fish, but definitely not a whale. Regardless of not being able to catch this guy, the mere panic you gotta feel when you naturally run across him for the first time, it's gotta be crazy. It's worse if you have thalassophobia like myself, but still, the sheer size of this guy would make anyone tweak a little. Honestly, this is kind of a bonus to the fact I was never able to get to the Animal Island back in the day, as this would have scared the shit out of me as a kid. But then again, I do remember hearing about the whale and assumed it was just a rumor or something, and only to find out several years later it was real, but only real for those who weren't broke little bitches. Damn. Isn't Reddit such a quirky place? It's where I go to get all my random video game facts and horribly graphic videos all in one place. Animal Crossing New Horizons and Reddit went together like Tom Nook and broken kneecaps back when it first came out. A lot of people took to Reddit to share their findings in the game, along with trading and things of that nature. A post blew up with updoots, Jesus fucking Christ, and pointed out something interesting about Tom Nook's office. After you upgrade the town hall from the tent, you may notice some smaller details that make up Tom Nook and Isabel's office. Most of this is your typical office stuff, and unless you're really looking, it probably just looks like a normal ass office. However, to one kind stranger, they recognize something behind Tom Nook's desk that appears to be a real-life printer. Specifically, it appears that Tom Nook uses a Xerox WorkCenter 7225 in his day-to-day. Now we finally know what he uses to print out all those ransom letters. Hell yeah. This user claims they work with printers in their job and was able to identify the printer in the game as this specific Xerox printer. This isn't super surprising, as many pieces of furniture resemble their real-life counterparts, but it's cool that they were able to recreate this printer to a T in the game, and even cooler someone was able to spot it. The Xerox WorkCenter 7225 was released in 2013 and is probably still being used to this day, so it's not a stretch to think that the developers were at some point using these printers daily and decided to design the printer in Nook's office after the real one they use all the time. Hey, I wonder if they'll add a fully functional Texas Instruments TI-80 graphing calculator in the 3.0 update. What do you guys think? Much like other games at this time, the original Animal Crossing on GameCube has had its beta and test maps leak online. There's a lot to see here. Quickly, in case anyone isn't aware, a test map is a map that is within the files of a game that developers use to test different game mechanics during development, usually a stripped down version of the game without the fluff so they can get straight to the issue at hand. In the original Animal Crossing's case, they needed to test a lot here, as there are 50 different test maps with varying degrees of strange shit to see. Obviously 50 is a lot to look through, so I'll be cherry picking a few to talk about for this entry, but if you're interested in seeing all 50, I'd recommend watching this video by Sly Cooper Reloaded Coded, where they go through all 50 of the test maps. To start, let's take a look at Ground Zero, or rather Beta Map Zero, that was used to test conversations mostly, but will show us what to expect from these test maps. Firstly, the skybox doesn't exist in test maps because, you know, who's got time for all that nonsense? I gotta get in here and fix Tom Nook's apron physics, brother. The lack of skybox really turns this from a cheerful experience to a rather eerie one. The surrounding town is filled with random assortments of objects that include weeds, trees, fruit, and even inclines and declines filled with pitfalls. While this isn't exclusive to the Beta Map Zero, the villagers are especially mean in this test map, as when you talk to them, they will complain about a full mailbox and then insult you. And this happens for everyone you talk to, so you just go around in this world shrouded in darkness and constantly get insulted. Yeah, I think I found Animal Crossing hell, brother. Beta Map 9 is used to test Nook's Cranny, and hilariously spawns the player in the black void located above Nook's. And you even come falling into the store when you walk up to Nook. Beta Map 26 sees the boot up screen in the player's attic, or wherever this black void is, but instead of being greeted by a villager, you're greeted with the side of their head. Hey, Tangy, bud, I'm over this way, dude. Just turn like 90 degrees, dude, you'll see me. Nah, you can't hear me, man. He's got pulp in his ears again. I told him to clean that shit out. There's a lot more oddities to see in these test maps that if I had more time, I'd love to break down. But for now, we'll go ahead and move on. The Forbidden 4 isn't a leaked, freaky-ass version of fucking the Final Four from Pokemon like we all were thinking, but actually references 4 of the NES games in the original Animal Crossing that were so hard to get that they were considered forbidden by fans. The way to get these NES games range from buying them at Nooks or Reds all the way to going on a scavenger hunt of sorts that a villager set up for you. And that's just how you get the uncommon NES games. To get the rarest of the rare, you'll need to acquire them from Nintendo giveaways or acquiring the rarer e-reader cards for the respective games. The 4 games, of course, are some of the best quality ones you could play, including Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, the original Mario Bros., and Ice Climbers. Ice Climbers, alright, you know, but come on, Super Mario Bros. And Legend of Zelda, dude? While there is no way to get some of these due to them being given away years ago, exclusively in things like trade shows and shit, you can use things like the empty NES furniture item to retroactively load these games back in, with some even dedicating a whole ROM to including each of the 4 forbidden games on a single ROM. They even made a little custom title screen and called it Double Crossing, even calling the games the Forbidden 4. It's pretty cool. So yeah, looking back on it, it seems like Nintendo was a bit stingy with their more successful NES games, the games they knew everybody would want to be playing in Animal Crossing, and wanted to make it exclusive to obtain these, and making it damn near impossible for players to naturally 100% the game without needing to use some cheats or something. Pretty lame shit, Miyamoto, gotta say. Would you want your villager to be the only one playing Mario and Zelda on NES? You greedy bastard. You're starting to sound like that guy who bought that unreleased Wu-Tang album all for himself. Jar of Greed over there. Just saying, when he smiles, he looks like the pot of greed, dude, from Yu-Gi-Oh! Animal Crossing on GameCube once again stands out against the rest of the series for having an extra attention to detail that was left out of some of the subsequent entries. Most every mainline entry has had a set of Super Mario Bros. Items that vary depending on which one you play. The original GameCube Animal Crossing, for example, featured 8-bit versions of these items from the Mario universe, and all were uniquely interactable. If you interacted with, say, a 1-up, it would play a 1-up sound effect similar to when you're hitting the rocks in the game. Or if you interacted with the Power power star, your character would start to light up and turn different colors like Mario does when he touches a power star in the classic Mario series, dude. Not only that, but the Starman theme plays during this, and hey, you'll actually be invisible to Tom Nook's weekly visits, dude. Just pop this baby when he's coming in with that bat. The Starman is an item that you can get in later entries, but unlike the GameCube version, you won't flash different colors, and instead only the theme will play while the star spins. But yeah, I'm not going to shit on any of the games for not having it, but again, it's just another thing that makes the GameCube game stand out a little bit. The iQue game console was a unique version of the Nintendo 64 that was made exclusively for China that was released in 2003. The console itself is the controller you hold to play the games, and it came loaded with only 14 N64 games, non-negotiable. Hey guys, Post Gambato here, editing. So apparently these 14 games weren't preloaded onto the iQue, except for 1 or 2 games when you bought the system. Or sorry, not the system. It's not a system, it's a controller. And then the rest of the games were to be acquired from a kiosk in which you'd load the game onto your iQue's memory card from the kiosk. So yeah, it's even worse. You don't even get the 14 off rip, dude. Anyway. Yeah, 14 doesn't sound that bad, especially considering you have some real heat on here, but not having the option for the whole library kind of sucks, man. It's 1000% better than nothing, as there was a ban on home video game consoles in China at the time, and this was a way to get around that, seeing as it was, hey, look, it's just a controller, guys, nothing fishy going on here. I'm just pretending to play video games. All that on the TV, that's a late night cartoon, brother. One of the 14 games that could be played off the iQue was a port of Animal Crossing, or rather Dobutsu no Mori, which is known as Dongwu Sinlin on the iQue. You can imagine that the name wasn't the only thing changed to localize the game better to China, as the game has numerous changes, including things like different holidays fully missing, and a wide variety of furniture that has been changed. Some of my favorite changes are the ones that don't really make any sense, like the traffic guidance robot furniture piece being turned into a pile of yellow sand. What? To be fair, a lot of these items are so ingrained in Japanese culture that there likely wasn't an appropriate equivalent, so a lot of these items are completely different in the iQue game. Stuff like the Bujan wash bin being turned into a camera on a tripod, or the deer scare being turned into a stone table are pretty good examples of this. Some of the most interesting changes could even be considered censorship. Ooh. Most of the items with the N64 logo on it were replaced with the iQue logo or completely changed to something different, like the N64 logo shirt being changed into this generic game controller. Woo! Look at that controller, dude. Good thing it's not plugged up to a home console. Listen, they are some pretty strange changes, but I could see how they'd want to distance themselves from referencing a home console like the N64 in a version like this. Something funny some have noticed is that characters like Blathers and O'Hare appear on the game's cover art even though they aren't present in the game. That's because by this point, Dobutsu no Mori had the Plus version already released with these characters added, but since this was a port of the original Dobutsu no Mori, they are absent. Pretty big oversight, as there isn't a whole lot going on this cover, so to have 3 out of the 7 characters on the cover not even be in the game is that's some next level bullshit, man. There's definitely a few other differences that are worth looking into, but overall, that's some of the major changes to the iQue version. This has to be one of the most obscure versions of Animal Crossing you could play, and man, I thought the Animal Island expansion was obscure, dude. Damn. We're really starting to get into the wacky theories that are usually present in these icebergs. But like they say, dude, all good conspiracies usually end up being true. As we've discussed numerous times, Tom Nook is a sketchy fella, and that's put in a little light. We know he gives out loans with payments expected with threats of violence if not paid in full from his raccoon goons. He targets people who are clearly going to be broke, like childlike characters including your villagers and the other animals that make up the towns. Considering he's also the economy flow for these towns in most games, we can pinpoint him as the ringleader to a child labor cult of sort. Okay, I know that's a huge leap, but in jest, it's fun to think of Tom Nook as evil as this dude. I mean, we know he's adopted his orphan nephews from the streets and put them to work pretty soon, so there's potential proof right there. Assuming they're paid though, we can look towards the player's villager and the surrounding animal villagers for potential victims of Tom Nook. Assuming Nook gives everyone else else the same treatment as he does with your character, it means he's manipulating and controlling everybody in this town. Sure, it's a stretch to consider these children, but I've always assumed everyone here was kind of a young adult age, whatever that means for animals. But yeah, the age you'd be when you first move out into the world alone. Whether or not Tom Nook is actually the leader of a child labor cult, people have definitely taken notice of the way Nook has run things in the past. For now, all you need to know is that more in jest, there is a theory that Tom Nook isn't the loan shark I believe him to be, but rather a leader of the cult that uses child labor to supply his many businesses. Alright guys, this is getting pretty wild now, dude. Apparently, Osama bin Laden, yeah, that bin Laden, not the other one you were thinking of, was a fan of Animal Crossing Wild World and would play often in the early 2000s. After bin Laden was taken out, a hard drive was found in his possession that had a Nintendo DS emulator downloaded on it with several games like New Super Mario Bros. DS, Pokemon Diamond, and crazy enough, Animal Crossing Wild World. Yeah, not only did they have the Hitler stash in Wild World, fucking Osama was playing this bitch. This game cursed or something? It's speculated that while Osama was in hiding, he was playing a lot of video games to pass the time, apparently including a shit ton of Nintendo DS games. With this hard drive and many documents found during the bin Laden raid being declassified, many have attempted to recover these files to see exactly what bin Laden was doing in these games. Sure, we could have seen how good at platformer games he is, or what kind of party of Pokemon he uses, but by far the most morbid curiosity you could find from this is exploring his Animal Crossing town. Do you think he had enough time to make a crazy ass town like this, or do you think it was a shitty ass default ass town? I don't know. I don't even know if I'd want to know. But even if I did, to my knowledge, no one has been able to access the file as it seems to be corrupted. I think there's a lot of important things to see from this declassification. This one was a pretty big one for all the gamers out there. What's next? We're going to find out Saddam has a Harvest Moon save. I wonder what he named all his farm animals. Alright, man, this is getting a little ridiculous as far as Animal Crossing conspiracies go. Listen, I'm not here to get political. We all know where that leads, right? Dog abuse. But some think that Animal Crossing is secretly, at best, a commentary on Western democracy, and at worst, communist propaganda. This is due to how the economy of Animal Crossing works and how the game is a community, sharing, and non-stressful, goal-oriented type of game. However, there are others who state the opposite, that the game is actually more capitalistic, with stuff like Tom Nook and his many ways of making money. Listen, I don't know where Animal Crossing falls in terms of how its government operates, and nor did I ever think I'd be considering it, like, at all. I think if there are any nods to propaganda, it is really well hidden, at least to me, and I really never get the feeling like Animal Crossing aligns with communism, because I guess I begin and end thinking about Animal Crossing at just how many sea bass are actually in the ocean. This is above my pay grade. Let's go ahead and move on. It seems with each mainline release, we get someone on a random forum board always talking about this theory that Animal Crossing is the afterlife, or limbo, or even purgatory. When you start to break down some of these theories, the lines do start to connect, as smaller strange things do start to add up to the possibility that this game could be some form of an afterlife. People have pointed to the name Animal Crossing itself, which references the real-life warning crossing signs for animals on roadways. Perhaps the name refers to the fact that all of these animals are in some way already dead, with the name referencing that a lot of the villagers are actually roadkill. There are a lot of animals you typically find being killed on roadways, but there are also animals that are rarely killed by cars, like tigers, lions, and the such. These could be explained as like animals that are endangered species. Therefore, the non-roadkill animals here have simply died due to the species being endangered. Do I even have to mention the dodo birds from New Horizons, a well-known extinct species of bird? I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think all of Animal Crossing is just a representation of the afterlife, or perhaps even purgatory or limbo or something? I think on any given day, I'm just enjoying the game for what it is, a life simulation game. But when you think a little deeper about the game, I think this idea or something like it is bound to pop into your head at some point. Fishing in Animal Crossing is pretty straightforward. You cast and reel in when you see the bobber get bit. It's been harder. Easier fish give you a lot more time to reel in when it bites versus rarer fish who are much harder to catch due to this window of time to press A being much shorter. This has led many players over the years to assume that there are just some fish that spawn that are actually impossible to catch. This isn't like an urban legend type of cursed fish or anything, we'll get to that in a little bit, but the theory that there are certain fish shadows that spawn that are actually impossible to catch to either keep the player on their toes or as a way to lower catch rates for fish or whatever. I could already see a bunch of comments saying that this just comes from players being bad at the game and every fish in Animal Crossing is catchable, which is what the internet will tell you as well. However, I'd like to bring up that at some point in all of our Animal Crossing careers, we've come across a fish that seems so fast to catch that it did seem impossible. I was ready as I could ever been. These would happen for me near the rarer fish spawns, like at the waterfall, probably with the char. But again, this could just be that I sucked at catching fish and these were harder fish to catch, so duh. I was missing these bitches. There's also a set of literal uncatchable fish in Animal Crossing on GameCube that lie far beyond where the player can cast. You can often see these fish when you're taking the boat with Captain to Animal Island and clearly aren't able to be caught as the player is stuck in the cutscene with Captain. If you unlock the player's camera and bring them to the middle of the ocean, you can attempt to catch these random fish shadows, but similar to trying to catch the whale shadow, this doesn't work when the player is standing on water. These are likely fish that are just set to randomly spawn that just so happen to spawn far out in the water and are uncatchable, but are also likely the same fish you'd be able to catch in your town or on your island. So yeah, we're not missing out on a whole lot here like we are with the whale, but it is low-key frustrating to see a fish's shadow and not be able to catch it. I'm just telling myself it's another sea bass, even though that shadow is way too small, and we all know it, dude. Looking back at the beta maps real quick, one particular one that focuses on Nook's Cranny features a strange asset that isn't seen anywhere else in the game. If you load this beta map up and go near Nook's Cranny, you can find these three strange yellow cubes that seem to be stuck on a track motion going back and forth. Seeing as this only appears in the beta maps, it's likely just a testing asset that didn't have a lot of time spent on modeling, or perhaps it's a placeholder for another asset that has that motion. I got that motion, twin. There isn't much more to the cubes than perhaps nailing down the asset that replaced these in the final game, but to my knowledge, nothing acts quite this erratic in the final GameCube release. I could be wrong about that though. All in all, this could be just a strange unused asset that was simply made for testing and nothing else, or, hear me out, it could hold all the answers to the Animal Crossing universe. Either way, we're not finding out, so let's just move on. Animal Crossing New Horizons has a wide variety of fish to catch, and seeing as it's an Animal Crossing game, of course it'd have its new wave of players creating rumors, but I don't think anyone really expected this. Near New Horizons' peak popularity, a rumor began online that you were able to catch the Titanic while fishing in the game. Yeah, the fucking Titanic. And you thought the sunfish was the biggest catch in the game. Yeah, right, motherfucker, here comes a passenger ship. I wasn't able to find the origin of this rumor, but it seems to have started the same way as any of the best rumors I fell for when I was a kid. Just someone joking around, spreading misinformation. The joke definitely fooled some people too, as there are some forums out there of people asking how to catch it and questioning its authenticity. There's even a fake wiki page that claims the Titanic is catchable, even with a fake catchphrase for when your player catches it. Clear the deck, I caught the Titanic, it's gigantic. Yeah, man, that'd be like if you dug up a chunk of one of the Twin Towers and your player said, Geronimo, look out below, I just dug up a steel beam. Yeah, not the best look for Nintendo, so that alone will tell you this one's fake, but it's still pretty humorous imagining your player pulling up a full-ass boat out of the water. And like, how would that even work? The ship clearly split into two pieces. So does it come up in one solid piece, or would you have to get both and combine them for the full ship? I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore, but yeah, this is where the state of Animal Crossing rumors is at recently, so there you go. Time for a cooler but equally ridiculous Animal Crossing fishing rumor. This one takes place in Animal Crossing on GameCube with a fish known as the Deathwing. The fish would supposedly spawn in random bodies of water and has red eyes and fangs. The rumor stated that if you caught the fish, it would instantly reset your game back to the title screen, so you'd want to avoid this fish at all costs. However, that's hard to do, as you don't know what you caught until you already caught it. So the Deathwing worked as a sort of boogeyman fish for the Animal Crossing universe. Obviously, there is no such thing as a Deathwing in the game, and the closest thing you can get to a Deathwing in Animal Crossing is this dress someone made and shared on Reddit based on a Deathwing from World of Warcraft. Now that I think about it, perhaps the Deathwing rumor was started based on the Deathwing in World of Warcraft. The description of the fish seems similar enough to Deathwing with the fangs and red eyes and all that. I think a fish like this would be pretty cool as a super rare catch, but you know, without the annoying fact to reset your game. We got Fish Brutus before GTA 6, damn. In Animal Crossing, throughout the series, there's a chance that a villager will give you something to deliver to another villager, and these items will change based on what game you're playing. In Animal Crossing on GameCube, these items would vary from clothing items all the way to what I think is one of the coolest items to run across in the whole series. During these favors, there's a chance a villager gives you a small Tamagotchi pet that is actually a Pokemon Pikachu variant of the toy pet. Although you can obtain the item, you can't do anything with it besides complete the villager's favor or keep it until they move out and return it to the wishing fountain. It's low-key unfortunate that the item doesn't function like the NES games or something to where you could take care of a small Pikachu in your day-to-day, but I don't think that was ever the intention for this item, as it's more of a reference to the real-life Pikachu Tamagotchi pet. Even as a useless reference, it's still one of the coolest things I've seen referenced in Animal Crossing. But man, a smaller, simpler pet simulation hidden in a life simulator would go so hard, dude. A lot of fans have noticed that the character Captain is, at best, a little flirty, and at worst is a fucking creep. He will often call the players cute and will come off like he's interested in something a little bit further. However, as many players are aware, Captain is actually married, as it's revealed in Animal Crossing New Leaf, on the island where the shop is run by Captain's wife, Leilani. Considering Captain is still out here slinging Riz like he's a bachelor, this has led many players to believe either Captain is emotionally cheating on Leilani, or they have an open relationship. I don't know, I'm probably reading too much into this, as many players give Captain a break saying it's just his humor and he is just being kind. I don't know, man. Knowing what I know about Kappas and their background and all that, the thing this fuck is based on, I can't imagine Captain is a great guy, I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, let's go ahead and stop right there. Of all the games to have a tragedy like 9/11 happen in its universe, the last one you'd likely expect is Animal Crossing. But hey man, I guess this was bound to happen. One of my throwaway ridiculous jokes was bound to come true. This is actually confirmed from a post on Reddit that states in the Dodo airport there is a sign that doesn't allow bottles of liquid on the Dodo flights, confirming that yes, indeed 9/11 happened in the Animal Crossing universe at some point, or at least a 9/11 like event, with some joking it was like Tom Nook's finance buildings that were hit by planes. In reality, this is actually referencing a different foiled attack plot that was the 2006 transatlantic aircraft plot, where terrorists plotted to detonate liquid explosives disguised as drinks. So yeah, not quite 9/11 levels of bad, but still, it means that terrorists exist in this universe, dude. And if they've gone as far as banning liquids, then we can assume that means that somewhere there's a video of the Animal Crossing president, who I can only assume is Tortimer, receiving the news that the tower is going down. Dude, that's gotta be some insane footage to see. Initially, I was going to dedicate Layer 8 to some additional topics I wanted to cover that the icebergs I pulled from didn't get around to, but given that we just got a batch of a bunch of brand new topics for New Horizons, I figured it'd be worth it to break down the update and everything new coming to the series and returning. So I'll save the bonus layer for the compilation that's coming out soon. I'll just tag that on to the end of the comp. I'll definitely put a video chapter for that layer in case you don't want to watch through the whole thing again. I figured that'd just be easier than releasing another whole part just for another little bonus layer I wanted to cover. But for now, let's go ahead and take a look at the new 3.0 update coming to New Horizons in January. It seems Nintendo saw how viable barely changing Wii U games and bringing them to the Switch was, so now they're doing that with a lot of the popular Switch games when releasing the Switch 2 versions. These games are brought over with minimal additions, mostly just being performance upgrades and often a gimmicky way to add in webcam features. Woo! Some of the best have been Kirby and the Forgotten Land and both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which desperately needed those performance upgrades, so there is some good examples of this. Unfortunately, these often come out at premium prices for the game itself and pretty steep upgrade prices that aren't always worth the money for what you get. It was just recently we got an announcement of a Nintendo Switch 2 version of Animal Crossing New Horizons, which is bringing a bunch of cool things, like being able to see your friends' ugly mugs while you run around your island. Even better, you can invite up to 12 players to your island to do absolutely nothing. They didn't even pretend to add something for these 4 more players to do on your island, like the inclusion of a minigame island or anything of that nature. Legitimately, the most hype thing to come from the Switch 2 version is the ability to use the mouse controls, and that's about it. I don't know, man. I bought a Switch 2, but the decisions to make the console more social with webcams and shit, it's just so out of touch it hurts, man. They're pretending Discord didn't already exist for a decade. Sure, it's kind of cool to be integrated into the games itself, but it still feels hella gimmicky and not worth it for a lot of these games. And unfortunately, New Horizons Switch 2 version seems to be another disappointing upgrade. And hey, it's nice that they didn't make the 3.0 update exclusive to the Switch 2 version. That would have been the nail in the coffin for Nintendo, or at least in the eyes of Animal Crossing fans. By far the bigger announcement from the New Horizons Direct was the 3.0 update that's bringing the most new stuff to the game. We'll be breaking down each big announcement into its own entry, as there's a lot to see here, so overall, just to look at 3.0 more broadly, I think it's decent. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it's definitely taking the steps in the right direction towards a better New Horizons, and perhaps has opened a door for even more updates in the future. Sure, I would have rathered a brand new game at this point, or even another standalone spin-off, but I still have a lot of problems with New Horizons, so if they could be fixed, I'd like them to be. And as I've stated, based on the 3.0 updates, they've answered a lot of my complaints I've had with the game, ones that I've made pretty obvious in earlier videos. But still, out of everything from this announcement, the most important to me and to those who put serious hours into New Horizons is the ability to craft multiple items at once. Oh, sweet baby Jesus, rejoice. Oh, we got it. Oh my god, I can actually use fish bait now. It's actually usable. It was never worth the 30 minutes it would take to make a stack of bait just to lose it in half that time, dude. It's amazing it took this long for a mechanic like this to make it in, but here we are. We're in the end game, baby. Anyway, let's march ahead and see what New Horizons will look like damn near 6 years after it was released. I was really down on the possibility of future collab villagers in the series, just due to how few there were initially in New Horizons, especially when you compare it to the previous games that had a bunch of these collab villagers, whether it was the Splatoon villagers in New Leaf or the strange pet translator villagers in Dobutsu no Mori. Well, Nintendo answered my call, and we now have several new collaboration villagers coming to the game, with Splatoon returning, and brand new to the series, The Legend of Zelda. Holy shit. By far, I'm more hyped for The Legend of Zelda villagers, sorry Splatoon, as they are so unique and unlike any other villagers we've seen before in Animal Crossing. Tulin, a bird villager, is clearly based on the design and style of the Rito birds from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and he or she looks pretty amazing here. Even better, we have Minoru, who is a deer who is seen dripped out in Zonai gear like this sick headpiece here. Sure, these guys might look out of place on your island, but it's no biggie to add in some of these sick new furniture pieces to make them fit in even better. Not only did Zelda get some love, but Splatoon is back as well, and this time features Cece and Vichy back in a new look. Man, this one is specifically pretty spooky. Well, this and Resetti's new job, as I was just talking about Cece and Vichy earlier in this Iceberg, and boom, they're back for this first time in almost a decade. They're based on the Splatoon 3 designs of Shiver and Fry, and look hella different from last time. And I gotta say, I'm digging their new style, especially Cece, as she has so much more life here than last time. Vichy is also looking a lot better here as well, and just for the fact that they are making a return when I'm pretty sure I said there was little chance, I gotta let these two move in when the update comes out, dude. These two will also come with their fair share of Splatoon themed furniture, so hey, we did it, boys. We got into Miyamoto's head enough to where we're actually seeing some good changes. Let's go. What's even more exciting is this opens up the game to even more collaborations in the future, especially with Zelda here, so we could start to see some more wacky collaborations, like shit, just to throw one off the dome, Lego. That'd be weird as hell. Oh shit, what? Much like Sanrio, Nintendo and LEGO have had really good relations recently, specifically with the success of the Mario LEGO mini sets, but I much prefer their more complicated collabs like the Super Mario World Mario build set. Jesus, have I ever sounded more like a fucking nerd? It seems like this collaboration is finally transcending the physical world, as a slew of new LEGO themed items are coming to Animal Crossing New Horizons in the 3.0 update. A lot of this is just furniture that you could expect in an Animal Crossing house, except they're made out of Legos now. The simplicity of this is actually pretty endearing, and overall, I think it's tasteful and doesn't feel super out of place in New Horizons. I do understand those who might think this is going a little bit too far in terms of collaborations, and I can kind of see where you're coming from, but it's not like they added Lego villagers or anything. The most you can do with these items is have like a dedicated Lego room or rack some Lego merch here and there, so I don't think they went too crazy here. This is still way less weird than Sony signing off on that Horizon Lego game. Look at that, Lego collab with Horizons in the title. That actually works. Hey, we did it. This is definitely one of the stranger announcements in 3.0, but regardless, I don't hate it. And once again, it opens up to future third-party collaborations like this, specifically for furniture and clothing items. So I'm hyped to see what comes next. Perhaps one of the biggest additions to 3.0 is the addition of the hotel on your island that will now be located off the side of your dock, which itself got an extension to compensate for the hotel itself. The hotel is run by familiar faces. Captain's family is back and in a similar situation as they were in New Leaf. Leilani is back running the front counter, while Grams can be seen running the souvenir shop again. Hell yeah, just like old days, dude. Not only does this look super familiar from New Leaf, but the actual purpose of the hotel is super reminiscent of something else that is already in the game. Happy Home Paradise. Yeah, this just seems like a dorked version of Happy Home Paradise for the base game, where you design hotel rooms based on a certain theme. In the direct, they show a seaside theme being decorated, but again from this, it legit just looks like a smaller version of Happy Home Paradise, as it appears you only get the one hotel room to decorate. I don't know, this definitely feels like been there, done that for me, and probably for anyone who's played through Happy Home Paradise. And yes, while it's great that people don't have to pay for that experience, that was one of the few Nintendo DLCs that was actually worth it, because of the amount of content it added. This seems like it will be pretty surface level, with you just decorating different hotel rooms, unlike Happy Home Paradise, where buildings like schools and hospitals were also available to be decorated. And good news, the hotel has added a souvenir shop in which you pay with the money you get paid for decorating the hotel rooms, so it's not completely just for fun when decorating them damn rooms. These seem like cool summer accessories like you'd find on the island in New Leaf, but again, they almost feel too close to the clothing items in Happy Home Paradise. I guess they're not all red this time, so that's decent. Lastly, the hotel and dock have added a shipping bin in which you can complete different orders for materials and furniture and such to be rewarded even more hotel points. I mean, hey, I'll never complain about more things to grind in the game, but how many fucking different currencies are in the game now? It's getting out of hand, dude. Overall, I'll really have to just wait till 3.0 to launch to really see what the hotel is all about and how good it can be. It seems like they're running out of ideas to me, but what do you guys think of the hotel? Are you guys hyped for it? I'll be excited if you can invite some of the hotel guests to live on your island after they stayed at the hotel for a few days or something. Again, we'll just have to wait and see, but honestly to me, you can go do this right now in a better version through Happy Home Paradise. Holy shit, dude. They really fucking did it. They gave my boy Resetti a new job. He's not gonna fade into obscurity after all. Let's go. Okay, this is hype, especially because I was just talking about how these guys aren't needed anymore due to things like auto-saving and all that. But man, they were really trying to find something for homie to do, because what the hell is this? It's like when work is slow, so your boss doesn't know what to do with you and just has you do some bullshit to pass the time. Here, scrub the fucking lining of the wall, brother. Resetti is now being used as another service the player can use to clear all the bullshit out of a plot of land. It seems like this will mainly be used for yards of houses as an easy way to pick up everything and rearrange. Plus, it looks like you can choose to also clear your beaches, or hell, why not do your entire town? This is definitely a nice quality of life update, but overall for someone who doesn't change their town all that often, this isn't something I'll be using a whole lot. So I'll say this is a lot better than what the Resetti boys were being delegated to before. But still, unless you're hardcore into designing of islands, this is just another thing that probably should have been in the game from the start. It seems a lot of the 3.0 updates are focused on quality of life improvements for those who love to design their islands over everything else in the game, as the next entry is all about designing as well. The Slumber Islands are yet another thing for the hardcore island designers of Animal Crossing to rejoice about, as it is a blank dream island that the player can visit to design and do whatever they want. Because hey, it's not your base island, so it doesn't matter. Nothing's permanent. The Slumber Island is aptly named as you visit them in your dreams, and are islands that you can freely edit and work on without the worry of needing materials or money or any of that jazz. This will legitimately help my future playthroughs, as there is nothing worse than pouring hundreds of thousands of bells into different structures just to hate where you placed them, or for them not to go with the flow of your town like you thought. The Slumber Islands is basically the creative mode of Minecraft in Animal Crossing now, as you have everything in the game at your fingertips. Not only that, you and your friends can decorate these illusionary islands, so hey, I guess there is something you can do with your friends after all. There you go. I think you could even do some fun minigames of your own in Slumber Islands with your friends, like seeing who can terraform their half of the island faster or something, you know? Again, it's a super helpful tool to those who want to set up a test island first to make sure everything works before they pour several hours and bells into a design that might not have worked in the end. I think the Slumber Islands only helps New Horizons, especially the more hardcore players, but I can't help but to see a little bit of wasted potential for another mode, possibly even a little minigame island mode, I don't know. Where's that? I don't see any minigame island, Miyamoto. Did you not hear my complaints for that? No, but at least Resetti and his family can keep paying their bills. Cool. The last big thing that is worth mentioning from the 3.0 update is one of the most hype for fans of the GameCube Animal Crossing. That's because the ability to play NES games is back when players purchase the NES furniture item and have an active NSO subscription. Yeah, of course they had to get their little bag in there. But hey, if you're already paying the $4 a month for their shitty online service, then this is a pretty cool small thing to play around with. Unfortunately, it seems like it will only be a limited library of NES games from the NSO NES app, so hopefully we'll see more games added in the future. While this is super hype, I think it kind of sucks that it's only the one NES console you need to get. Sure, it's way easier that way, but there was something special about obtaining the different consoles for each game in the GameCube version. Maybe it was just the miniature box art on the games, but this definitely feels like it lost some of that charm. I think it's also due to the fact that it would take 5 seconds to close Animal Crossing and swap to the NSO app to play some NES games, so it kind of feels a little antiquated, but still it's a cool reference and thing you can do in the game now. Not only is the NES obtainable in the 3.0 update, but other Nintendo items like a Famicom and even some of Nintendo's original toys they made before getting into the video game market. These are so cool, dude, and I can't wait to make my own little Nintendo museum in a room in my house, dude. They didn't end up showing off all the items either, but we know there will be quite a few of Nintendo's classic consoles besides the NES, like the Game Boy and Super Famicom, as far as we could see in the order list. We can even see a shot of some of the consoles in the next scene, even showing off the American Super Nintendo next to the Super Famicom. A super cool addition and feel us right at home with this stuff like the Mario items present in New Horizons, so all in all, this was one of the coolest things from the 3.0 update announcement. Besides a few smaller things like the ability to expand your storage and store things like trees in your house, that was the basic highlights of the 3.0 update and what we can expect to hit the game in January. Overall, I was a tad bit underwhelmed by it when I first saw it, but looking at it deeper, there's definitely a lot of cool stuff here for new collaboration items and villagers, and even though I'm disappointed in additions like the hotel, I'm hyped to see what will come of New Horizons in the future. Maybe in another 6 years it'll feel as complete as New Leaf. As I stated at the beginning of this long-ass video, I've saved some brand new entries to the series in a final bonus layer. In this layer, we're covering a bunch of random entries that weren't covered in the Iceberg themselves, but I still feel like should be talked about, so without further ado, let's finish the Animal Crossing Iceberg officially. As we've discussed with topics like Ica Village and New Leaf, Animal Crossing was the perfect playground to craft some pretty creepy for their time creepypastas. One of the more popular Animal Crossing creepypastas actually comes from Wild World and has since been outshined by more modern pastas like Ica Village. However, there are definitely a fair share of those of you who remember it, as I've had viewers on this Iceberg series mention it in the comments. So this one is for you guys. Let's break down a little bit of the Animal Crossing Wild World creepypasta creepypasta simply known as Camp. The story begins by following the main character Billy, who is a child whose parents are sending him off to a summer camp, and this entire story is told from Billy's first-person perspective. From the very beginning, Billy notices stuff being off, like the way the taxi driver asks for payment, even though Billy's parents already paid for the camp funds beforehand. So what the hell? Is he trying to shake you down? After this, Billy arrives in town and things quickly go from bad to worse. Since the creepypasta, at least early on, is told in tandem with screenshots from the game, this is all very grounded in Wild World, but with the simple idea that this is supposed to be a camp instead of a town, and instead of it actually being a camp, it's some sort of forceful work to live situation with no exit for our main character. Things like asking to leave through the gates but being forced to finish your part-time job first and not being able to call home make these simple aspects of Wild World feel particularly pretty spooky in this context. I think at least for most of the exposition, the story does really well to keep things grounded in the world of Animal Crossing, while creating their own horror story around the things in the game. Billy will awake the next morning to find a letter from his mom who sent him an acorn after Billy reached out specifically to her to send him some food. He quickly realizes this is likely not his real mom, because it's a single acorn, and is now much deeper in this nightmare than ever before. Billy meets a new member of camp who is the duck Pate, who seems to be friendly towards Billy in the beginning, even giving him a stove for a nice heat source for the upcoming winter, given that Tom Nook only left a simple candle as a heat source in the house. With this, Billy sees Pate as the only other normal person in town and decides to write them a letter trying to explain that they think they're being held hostage here. However, the next time Billy sees Pate, she is walking back from Tom Nook's and is visibly pissed at Billy. With this, the realization washes over Billy that he'll have to escape on his own, as there are eyes everywhere. For the sake of time and the fact you should just read the original creepypasta if any of that was interesting, which I'll link down below, we'll stop there, with that serving as sort of a teaser for a pretty good creepypasta, not gonna lie. Don't get me wrong, it hasn't aged the best, with lines like, before I even get out of the door, Tom Nook's all over me like a cross between a used car salesman, a lawyer, and a German shepherd. Bro was tweaking when he wrote that. But overall, the story serves as a pretty grounded, creepy story in the Animal Crossing world, and even though it gets pretty unrealistic towards the end, it still holds up as a unique, creepy take on whatever the hell is going on in these Animal Crossing games. So throughout the Iceberg series, we've covered numerous collaborations with other brands getting their own villager in the game, and it's time to finally cover the rest of them. It was brought to my attention that Tulin and Minoru aren't actually the first Legend of Zelda collab villagers in Animal Crossing, as back in the Welcome Amiibo update to New Leaf, there were quite a few Legend of Zelda reference villagers, and some of the cooler ones I've seen, I must say. Admittedly, I kind of stopped playing New Leaf as much when Welcome Amiibo's update dropped, and considering I didn't really collect as many amiibos back then, I wasn't aware that scanning in certain Zelda amiibo would unlock these special villagers. These villagers included Wolf Link from Twilight Princess, Medley from Wind Waker, Ganon, and Epona, and all are their respective animals. While I still really like Minoru and Tulin coming to New Horizons, seeing stuff like Medley and Ganon as their actual selves in villager form are so fucking cool, and I'd love to see them return. Sure, Minoru and Tulin do reflect the modern Zelda games a bit better, but it's not like this version of Ganon hasn't shown up in a recent Zelda. Come on, Echoes? Come on. So I'd love to see these added back into New Horizons as well one day. Besides the Legend of Zelda collab villagers I somehow missed, there are a few random collab villagers I've yet to cover, like the 7-Eleven collaboration, which introduced Philly the horse. Was it supposed to be like a Philly cheesesteak? I don't get that one. There really isn't a whole lot tying her to the convenience store, so this is kind of a stretch, I gotta say. I do get that 7-Eleven convenience stores are big in Japan, like huge, but still, it's just as strange as seeing a KFC or maybe a Subway collaboration, as there isn't a lot tying these two things together. Even with that though, I don't think Animal Crossing has ever been more true to my real life than this, as my villager can now make as many late night snack runs as I do in real life. Give me the taquito. Another collaboration was with the Monster Hunter series, which is also something that is huge in Japan. Not only does Monster Hunter have a villager present in Animal Crossing, but certain Animal Crossing content also shows up in a certain Monster Hunter game, but we'll talk about that more in a moment. Feline is the collaboration villager for Monster Hunter and reflects the feline sidekick you get in most of the Monster Hunter games. Seeing as cats are big in both series, I don't think this was super unexpected, but pretty nice treat for fans of both series. Besides these collaboration collaboration characters, we have a stranger one known as Holden, who is a small yellow hamster villager who represents Fueki, a Japanese supply company. Sure, an office supply company might be the strangest collaboration we've seen yet, but looking at Fueki's products, it seems like another Sanrio's type of collaboration. They got a lot of cutesy products. This is all of the collaboration villagers now, and I truly hope that this won't be the last of the collaboration villagers we can talk about. And given that we're getting some new ones here in a few days, it's looking up for the future collaboration villagers. Whether that's making a villager based on a bricklaying company or another Nintendo franchise getting their love in Animal Crossing series, I'm hyped to see whatever comes next in terms of future collaboration villagers. We've talked a lot about villagers thus far in the Iceberg, but there is a select few villagers, or at least animals, that we haven't touched on yet. There are animals that went unused in the original Dobutsu no Mori, of which can be accessed from the back end of the game. There are just two animals that went unused, a squirrel simply known as XSQ, or Extra Squirrel, and yet another cat known as Cat-13. The squirrel has taken up the name online of Chestnut or Shikito due to some surrounding text where the file is found that suggests that these are its name. However, these are actually unrelated, unused catchphrases for islanders, so not its name at all. This extra squirrel only exists in the GameCube versions of the original Dobutsu no Mori and Animal Crossing, and the model in these versions include a string that reveals the squirrel might have played a special event character similar to holiday characters like Zipper. The dokudo in the string of text may also reveal what event this character would have hosted, with many speculating it had something to do with spelunking, digging, caving, as dokudo is close to the word dokutsu, which means cave or opening from the ground. However, the string also exists in the original N64 Dobutsu no Mori, where it also went unused but is auto-filled with Gulliver's model instead of this extra squirrel character. So likely the squirrel was just an extra villager or something along those lines instead of an actual new event character. There is actually even less on the unused Cat-13 character, as it appears to have changed into what we know as Anka today. Seeing the amount of cats in the series today, for me, it's not a huge loss having this villager cut, but it would be cool to see both of these villagers realized in the game one day. However, similar to villagers who were abandoned and never brought back in the series, wink wink, it's likely these will never be realized as actual villagers in the series. If you played Animal Crossing for a while, you may have noticed some villagers that have not returned to the series. A lot of the villagers that were once in the series were never brought back, and that's a real shame due to the favoritism that happens with players and the villagers in the games. It's kind of like when Pokemon doesn't include your favorite one in the new game or something, and it's not just like it's one or two villagers here. There's a couple dozen villagers who were just never seen in the series again. It seems to be random too, as there are several different types of animals here, and none of them seem to have been removed for any specific reason. I'd love to see an update to New Horizons where they bring back all of these cut villagers from over the years. There are too many cool villagers in this list, dude, that sure are a little bit basic compared to newer villagers, but still nothing stands out as to why these were cut versus others. Hell, that's not even entirely true either, because some of these villagers are dope, like Hambo, Masa, and Sven, which are some of the coolest designs for the respective animal groups I've seen. Again, I'd love to see some sort of redemption for these villagers who were cast aside, but considering most of these only have the old school GameCube models, the Animal Crossing team has likely forgotten about them. I still think even if they didn't want to bring them back fully integrated as villagers, they could at least reference these forbidden villagers in passing, like other villagers talking about them or receiving letters from them or some shit. I doubt from this point forward that any new villagers will be removed from the game, given that the villager list is getting into Pokemon numbers nowadays. But hey, be on the lookout. There may come a day where Raymond's not available to be gotten, dude. Listen, I've been literally playing Animal Crossing New Horizons since this series started, and it's not stopping, alright? Because up next, we're talking about even more content that went unused in New Horizons. However, unlike them taking 6 years to add something like stat crafting into the game, this next one doesn't piss me off so much, as it's just slightly disappointing. The reactions you obtain in New Horizons are plentiful and unique from one another, but the game had a lot more reactions planned that just didn't make the cut. I'm not going to go into each reaction here, but there are videos on YouTube like this one by Jay, where they added the unused reactions back into the game and demonstrated what they look like. A majority of them are actual legit reactions that went unused for the main character, but there are a few here obviously unused as they were used for other characters like Gulliver's pleading for help on the beach. It is pretty funny seeing the villager reenact these animations, but otherwise you have reactions like talking, desperation, and sweating for when you get into those heated business discussions with Tom Nook. It would have been cool to see all those reactions fully realized in the final game, and it would have given a lot more expression to your main character, but again, this isn't a huge deal to me, as I'm not one to go around emoting on my villagers, doing a little L dance, doing a little orange justice. But for those into photography or role-playing, this is definitely a disappointing omission from the final game. Nintendo loves to stick references to their other series in their games, and as we've seen thus far, Animal Crossing is finally in the ranks of Nintendo IP worth referencing. Let's go! It wasn't until the series grew in popularity with New Leaf where we started to see references in other games more often, but today you are bound to see at least a small nod to Isabelle or something in another Nintendo game. For example, in the Donkey Kong Country series, Donkey Kong can often be seen doing some unique idle animations all the way from beating on his chest like an actual ape to pulling out any number of Nintendo's handheld consoles and playing a little video games to pass the time. In Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, we can see Donkey Kong pull out a Nintendo 3DS, the XL version to be specific, and he can play any number of 4 3DS games. One of these games, of course, is New Leaf, because what we would be talking about this for otherwise, in which players can hear sound effects from New Leaf, like people moving in, digging, and coming out of the house. Unfortunately, this was removed in the Switch re-release for Tropical Freeze because Nintendo doesn't like to have fun anymore. But no, in reality, he actually pulls out a Switch, and given New Horizons hadn't launched yet, there is no Animal Crossing game to reference here. So this at least confirms that Donkey Kong enjoys playing a little Animal Crossing like Reggie Fils-Aimé. He's got to get back to his New Leaf town. And I don't really know what that means for the fact that Donkey Kong and the Animal Crossing characters have shared a game themselves in Mario Kart 8. I've always just kind of assumed lore-wise that all of Nintendo's games we have in real life also exist in the characters world, as we constantly see references to different games within the games themselves. It's all very stupid, convoluted, and it's this guy's fault. So send him your hate, dude, not me. All I know is I'd like to believe Donkey Kong is also very disappointed with New Horizons and is hoping in bated breath for January 15th. He just got back from a crazy adventure, and all the big oaf wants to do is play some classic Animal Crossing. I gotta say, Donkey, my boy, it's looking like you might need to dig out your old 3DS XL charger, man. Charge that bitch up. You're gonna wanna play some New Leaf. Did you ever think that acclaimed Souls developer From Software would be brought up naturally in an Animal Crossing video? Well, it might be a bit like the Wikipedia game where it's a bit of a stretch to link two things like this together, but there's a connection and it's solid. As I mentioned, Monster Hunter and Animal Crossing not only collab with the addition of feline into the Animal Crossing series, but a few Animal Crossing characters also showed up in a Monster Hunter game. Monster Hunter Diary Poca Poca Feline Village was originally developed by From Software and released on the PSP, but was then re-released by a different developer on 3DS several years later and was known as Monster Hunter Diary Poca Poca Feline Village DX Deluxe. This re-released version of the game is the one that has the Animal Crossing crossover DLC in it. So again, I'm wrapping some red strings around some push pins here, but hey, that's a solid connection if I've ever seen one. And I can't wait to see a realistic Tanuki as an Elder Lord in Elden Ring 2, called Thomas of the Nook or some shit, I don't know. Anyway, Monster Hunter Diary Poca Poca Feline Village Deluxe is pretty different from your traditional Monster Hunter game, and mainly focuses on your cat sidekicks and their different quests they go on. The Animal Crossing DLC basically added in outfits for your felines that included a Tom Nook outfit and a previously mentioned person from an entry, Nindori. Both are really solid and fit the aesthetic presented by Monster Hunter Diaries, with the large chibi heads and the gangly dangly arms. Tom Nook is based on his design from New Leaf, which makes sense as New Leaf had just come out at the time, and Nindori is based on the mascot design from the magazine Nintendo Dream. I personally haven't played a ton of Monster Hunter, main series or spin-offs, because the gameplay loop isn't super satisfying to me, so this game isn't even near on my radar. But it's still cool to see the more niche side of Animal Crossing references like this, and it paved the way for Animal Crossing to get its own Monster Hunter collab with the addition of Feline and the Welcome Amiibo update to New Leaf. Nintendo Land was one of the few new things from the Wii U that I wish Nintendo would revisit. I don't know if it's just blind nostalgia, as I haven't gone back to it in quite a few years now, but I would really love to see another project like this that celebrates all of Nintendo's biggest franchises that's not just Smash Bros. If you're not familiar, Nintendo Land was the premier launch pack-in title with the Wii U, you know, back when Nintendo did cool shit like that, free stuff like that. It was a party game that was more of a tech demo than an actual game, but utilized the Wii U's tech the best I've seen since, which is pretty unfortunate because it was a launch title. There was a good bit to do in this game too, as if you didn't have a lot of friends to play with, there was a decent amount of single player stuff to play through, like the Legend of Zelda quest line. Sure, a lot of the games were clunky to play, but I still think that a game like this would do good on the Switch. I mean, it's gotta be better than 1-2 Switch and Welcome Tour, right? Jesus Christ. One of the games in this party compilation was Animal Crossing, which was one of the mini games that was only fun if you played with other people. In fact, you can't even play it alone with bots. You have to have at least 2 people. The basics of the game was that one player would control Copper and Booker both on the Wii U gamepad, and they are based on their Wild World designs of gate guards instead of police officers. The other players would control different animals, and their objective is to collect different candies around the map and dump them into goals. They'd also have to dodge the player controlling the 2 guards, and overall it was a fun cat and mouse type of game. As far as Animal Crossing goes, there isn't too much to see here that you would be missing if you've never seen it. There are like 2 maps to choose from. One is a mock-up of an island from the series, and the second is a pretty generic town from the series. Besides a few characters from Animal Crossing showing up here, like the aforementioned Booker and Copper, you have a few villagers that the other players play as, like Dizzy, Peanut, Lily, and Tangy. Like some of the other Nintendo Land games, this could be any other Nintendo series and it still would have likely worked here, but nonetheless, it's still cool to see some Animal Crossing representation in a game like this. And it's great that the game is actually fun to play, unlike other Animal Crossing ventures on the Wii U. Back during the Game Boy Advance era, Nintendo was wanting to follow up in the footsteps of the successful Game Boy camera and attempted to make one for the Advance known as the Game Eye. This project was being worked on in the early 2000s and was only ever shown to the public once at E3 2003. Now, if you're a fan of Game Boy Advance, then you probably know this product was never released and was ultimately canceled, canned. They didn't want to do it. There is also a game being worked on alongside the Game Eye known as Stage Debut, which looks more like a tech demo than an actual game, but was being worked on as the premiere game for the Game Eye. Stage Debut would have been released on the GameCube, and it featured pretty simple gameplay where the main gimmick would be importing photos from your Game Eye to then use in the game. The most impressive thing you could do with the photos you imported was place them on character avatars, which would then make your character appear as you do in real life. In terms of like GameCube tech, this is actually a pretty good outcome. I mean, there's sports games that are trying to do this shit and fail year after year still. We could see images of Satoru Iwata running around as himself in the game, assuming it was an image taken with the Game Eye. That's pretty impressive. That looks like the homeboy. In these images, we can also see references to other games on the GameCube, including Pikmin and Animal Crossing. In some of the screenshots from the E3 demo, we could see a model of the Animal Crossing villager hanging out with Iwata and a red Pikmin in what looks like a Japanese classroom, along with some other images including some other villagers from Animal Crossing. It's cool to see a collaboration like this that includes Animal Crossing, and it's a shame that the full game never came out. However, it's all but confirmed that this idea was then turned into the uber successful Mii characters on Wii and Wii U, so it's really not all that bad of a thing that it was never released because the concept got used eventually. This has to be one of the rarest appearances of Animal Crossing outside of the respective series, and it's a lost piece of Nintendo history we may never see again. WarioWare games always love to reference other Nintendo games, usually in 9-volt stages, as he is all about classic Nintendo content. Of course, this means all of Nintendo franchises, including Animal Crossing, gets referenced in these games all the time, but by far the strangest and goofiest comes from WarioWare Gold on Nintendo 3DS. WarioWare Gold was one of those life support 3DS games, having come out well past the prime of the console, and for that reason I never got around to playing it. The game brought back a lot of series greats in terms of the micro games, and similar to games like Mario Party Top 100, was mainly based on other content from previous games in the series. Looking back though, it seems like WarioWare Gold attempted to add in a lot more content than Mario Party Top 100 did, as there is a lot of life to this game. Nowhere is that more present than if you were to try and scan in any number of amiibo that had released up until when WarioWare Gold was released. Wario will sketch any amiibo that you scan into the game with varying results. Most of them look like a toddler sketched them from memory, but hey man, this is gold. Get it? My favorite by far is Timmy and Tommy, as one of them has their apron hiked so high up, Buddy's looking like Marge Simpson up in a bitch. Welcome in. I don't think Isabelle has ever looked goofier, dude. And Blathers looks like he's about to get hit by an incoming train. Holy shit. These are great to look through and have a laugh. And yeah, that's literally it in terms of scanning these amiibo in. That's the purpose. But trust me, there's been a lot worse uses for these things. There are a lot of these sketches in the game that range past Animal Crossing, where you can even scan in Wario himself. Guess what happens? He paints up a fucking masterpiece for not only his Super Smash Bros. Amiibo, but his Mario Series one as well. These are anime level thirst traps of Wario, and just the juxtaposition from these of Wario to literally everyone else is hilarious and fits Wario perfectly. Like, Buddy has the ability to be a good artist, but only reserves all but 5% of his ability for self-portraits. But yeah, I really wanted to show these because I don't know if you'll ever see the Animal Crossing cast more fucked up than here. Thanks to the fact that the original Animal Crossing is over 2 decades old, we not only have seen the ins and outs of every part of the game now, but insights as to how the game came to be are starting to be shown. In an interview with Leslie Swan, a former localization director at Nintendo, it was revealed what Animal Crossing might have been called in the West instead of Animal Crossing. As we know, the direct translation of Dobutsu no Mori into English is Animal Forest, but due to Nintendo's legal team denying this name, it was back to the drawing board for the localization team. Swan states that they took up to 6 months to settle on Animal Crossing and had several names they liked that ultimately got denied too. It must have been at least 6 months or maybe a year for us to clear the name Animal Crossing, said Swan. I remember we had so many other names that we were in love with, and then we would be crushed when they would be rejected. My favorite was Animal Acres because the grids of the town lent themselves to being called acres, but again, that didn't clear. The name Animal Acres is one of the only confirmed potential names for Animal Crossing, but it appears the team went through several names before settling on this final name. I honestly don't hate Animal Acres, as it has alliteration and makes sense as the game's map is divided into different acres. I wonder what the series would have looked like with a different name, if it wouldn't change anything, or if this would be the butterfly effect to where the newest Animal Acres game came out with the most content on day one, and there was no need for random updates every 3 years. Now I'm starting to really like this alternate name, dude. There's likely a lot more to Animal Crossing that I didn't cover in this final bonus layer or the entire iceberg that would be worth talking about, but for today that's where we're putting a pin in the huge Animal Crossing iceberg. Thanks to everyone who watched the series, whether that's when it came out or all in this video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll be back with some more iceberg content real soon. If you'd like to check out my second channel, I do gameplays and other things over there, so I'd recommend checking that out if you'd like to see more consistent content from me. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Peace.